It's Thanksgiving, Chaz. You can't watch nature documentaries on Thanksgiving.
Who disrupts my coronation?
Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame death party!
What's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as I gather around the table for this Canadian Thanksgiving episode of ThisWeekInGeek.net. You may think we may be taking the holiday weekend off. You would be wrong. You would be terribly, terribly wrong. But I'm not alone as I feast upon turkey, broccoli casserole, crustless pumpkin pie, among other things.
Alex, the producer, we took the other holiday off.
Yeah, exactly. I'm taking off the important holiday. This is the colonizer holiday, so I'm fine with that.
We took off the holiday that doesn't actually get any time off.
Yeah, which is weird. So that's Canadian history politics for you. If you ever want me to explain it, just ask me on Twitter. So anyway, guys, yes, we are back. Last week, we took some time off for Truth and Reconciliation Day. And this week, we're not taking it off because, well, we still have a show to produce. We got a lot of stuff to talk about because it's been a pretty busy news week. But as we often start off the top of every single show, we talk about what has been going on in the last little bit. So, as you guys know, I've been following the Guelph Storm of the Ontario Hockey League. I've been going out to those games. Went to the home opener last week, and they actually did something for Truth and Reconciliation Day. Tremendously pleased with how well that was treated, with respect and reverence. It was a really nice thing that they did. They had somebody come out and speak. They had a representative. They had the outreach group that supplies my scholarships so I can go back to school right now. They had a thing like this fan days thing, which is really neat. And then unfortunately we didn't win that game, which is, that's just the way it is. But I went to the game last night, or not last night, I guess it would be Friday night as of this recording. We played a team I've never seen before, another American team I've never seen before, called the Flint Firebirds. Again, fantastic. And one of the things that I kind of want to mention here, this is how much I love Guelph recently. So, I get out in the community. Like, everybody knows, oh, that's Mike. And I'm getting to the point where, like, oh, that's the really friendly guy in the wheelchair sort of vibe. So I went to go play Pokemon in the park on Saturday. And I played with some new people. So me and Blair, we bought Timbits, which are basically, for you Americans and other people in other countries, donut holes.
Or what are they called? Munchkins?
Or something like that.
At Duncan, I think they're called Munchkins.
Yeah, so we got them in these like Halloween bucket things, and we intended to share them with our Pokemon group. Unfortunately, it was so damn cold up, only 2 people showed up. So we're left with, it's supposed to be a boo bucket of 31 Timbits. I think we've given out maybe 10. So
I had 2 small ones today.
I think I've had, since we got it, I think I've had maybe 4. So shit. But no, when I went to the hockey game on Friday, I had other people come up to me just who know me from the community. They're like, oh, hey, you're Mike. You're that really friendly guy. You're that guy who always does the disability and the indigenous stuff, right?
Whenever I hear really friendly, my first thought is, you're that really fat guy. Because that's what I was used to hearing when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, it's weird.
But it's nice hearing friendly.
Well, yeah. like
versus something, negative.
Mean. Yeah, like it's something incredible. And just getting noticed, like I said, I got noticed at the Guelph Jazz Festival a few weeks ago. I'm getting noticed by some of the local politicians, for better or for worse. And it's been a really, really good time here in Guelph. And I'm really glad when I go out to the hockey games. And this is something, Alex, I've never had this ever happen to before. So there's a woman who is the hostess for the Guelph Storm games at the Sleeman Center, and her name is Gina. I had to leave the home opener because we played till like almost 11 p.m. because we went into overtime. That never happens. And I had to leave before the 50-50 draw. So I'm like, Gina, I'm going to trust you. Can you, if I win, I'll give you some money, but can you look for my ticket? Because my bus was coming. And when I showed up to the hockey game this week, she's like, Mike, I took down your number. We're going to double check it. I think this is wallpaper, but it was a really good thing just to see someone go that extra mile, to be that trustworthy. And I was just tremendously pleased. Like I said, the more time I spend out in this community, the more I love it. And it's kind of nice. And it's kind of crappy now that the weather's getting so cold I can't go outside anymore. I had to wear texting gloves. It was so cold. I had to wear a toque, and I took off all my hair. So you won't see any pictures with Mike until his hair grows back significantly.
You got a little Uncle Fester thing going on for Halloween.
God. They bicked me when I went to the mall last week to get my hair cut. By the way, first time I went to a barber in like 10 years. And it was so cool. I think
so did you just wheel up and they put you in an area where they could cut your hair?
No, they moved the barber's chair for me.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought those things were bolted to the floor.
The old ones used to be the ones that were like made of like
iron.
Like those, my Opa had a barber shop, and his chairs were rated for like 1,000 pounds at a time when most people were like under 200.
Yeah.
Because they were built like tanks, and those are worth money. Newer chairs probably, I wouldn't personally, for somebody my size, trust a chair that you can just slide. Mm-hmm. But that is good for you.
Yeah,
But if you find some of the old barbershops in town, they might still have those old suckers from the 40s and 50s that were like all cast iron.
There was a barber I used to go to up in a place close to where I grew up. His name was Bill's Barber. He was right across from my elementary school. I think he's since passed away because he was old even when I was younger. He had one of those chairs, but he always did the most wonderful job. But when I went to this barbershop, Alex, it was like something out of like a music video. And here's what I mean by that. I think they're of Eastern European descent, and they had this weird rave music with this attractive woman playing rave music. They had an old guy, two really young guys.
So you went to an Albanian trance barbershop?
Yeah, but it was so cool. But here's what happened to me. So I go to pay, and I'm like,
you want pierogi? I'd be like, I don't know. You get pierogi with haircut.
Cool. I go to pay, and I'm like, yeah, I'll just pay with my credit card. We only take cash. The color drained out of my face because I don't carry cash. Because it's such a pain in the ass.
They usually have it in the door when you walk in.
Yeah, I didn't notice that was only cash only. So after freaking out for like 40 minutes to get the money, eventually I e-transferred them. But huge shout out to those guys for just being so understanding.
So now you got to keep like $25 on you just in case.
Yeah, just in case of oh shit money. Because I was like, I didn't rip you off, I swear to God.
I was going to say, most barbershops, if they're private, a lot of them still do cash only, no debit or credit.
Yeah, I was so
it's only the chains that take like magic cuts and all that. But if you go to a good barbershop, a lot of it's still cash only.
Yeah, like this is the kind of barbershop I would go back to. Like once my hair comes back. In fact, I don't know whether if I would ever dye my hair again. I mean, I'm 40 years old. Right?
If you go there and you want to get like the full on, the shave, the set, the old school, a lot of them don't use the straight razor anymore, or if they do, they have to replace the razor with disposables. They don't use like the old school one with the strap.
Yeah, like that big one.
The big one where they would
the horror movie one
where you sharpen it on a leather strap. I love that, the old school one. But even then, if they do the full set where it's like $30, do that. Tip them an extra $5 if you get them to play, like the whole Darude Sandstorm track. And you just got to be careful though. If those Eastern European dudes, when the beat drops, they might nick your ear. If you're,
But the guy was so good. And here's why I got that haircut. So I picked up my media badge for the Guelph Storm, and I'm kind of thinking, Okay, just in case I have to get a new picture taken, I stopped and I took off my hat and I looked at a mirror and I had the Ace Ventura curls. And I'm thinking, oh my God, because I thought Blair was full of shit when she said, your hair looks terrible. I'm thinking, oh, you're my wife. Of course you're going to say that. Nope, wrong. Always trust your wife. So that's been my last 2 weeks. What about you?
I've been dying.
Yeah, what the hell happened?
I went to the doctor 2 Thursdays ago, and it was when I had blood work done earlier, and that's when they were checking for diabetes, which I have, but again, mildness on pills, blah, blah, blah. And it's been a while since I had to do a longer walk, like a few kilometer trek, and I was going to be maybe late for my appointment. Get there, rush there as fast as I can, a bunch of uphill walking, uphill, downhill, crooked sidewalks, very uneven for somebody with a mobility disability. I'm walking with my cane going, oh God. You know, like when you walk through snow and you're so tired from walking through the snow because of how uneven it is? That's the kind of sidewalks leading up to the doctor's office. And I get there and I'm like, oof, sit down, leg falls asleep, do my whole spiel there, get my prescriptions, start to go home, leg starts to hurt pretty bad. I'm like, oh, I might have pulled something. I get home. I had to stop in the park on the way home because my legs hurt so bad. I'm like, I'm going to sit down. I'm like, oh no, if I sit down, I'll never get up. So I sat down. It was a pain to get up. I get home, and by the time I get home, which is like 3 minutes later, I can feel a muscle or a vein or something in my leg behind the knee, like backside of my knee, like pulsing and hard and won't move. I'm like, oh no, I pulled something bad or bruised something. And I was barely able to sit down. I get up, go around. I'm limping more than I'm limping like somebody who has a broken leg and doesn't have crutches. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh God. So I get to my room, go to bed. And then for the next 7 to 10 days, it was various progression levels of throbbing, horrifying pain in my leg where I was like, I kept looking. I'm like, okay, I don't have a blood clot. I don't have anything like that. And then I realized it felt like the time I tore my quad and my other leg, like 10, 15 years ago, or tore it. I didn't tear it off the bone completely, but I did a slight tear, and that hurt for like 7 months. And I was like, oh God, I don't want that. But then I realized, no, it's more of a pull. So the back of the leg hurt, couldn't bend it. Dude, sitting on the toilet, just going from standing to prone and standing to squatting, nightmarishly painful.
There was a time when you got hurt, you got hurt on the Thursday.
Yeah.
Sundays when we typically do the show.
Yeah.
I contacted you in the morning because okay, Alex, I'll see you at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
And you sent me a message like, hey, I'll be ready for the show at 7. I'm like, okay, fine. Maybe he just fell back asleep. I messaged you again at noon, thinking, okay.
I had already messaged
weird.
you, but you didn't see it. And I said, can you do it on your own?
Yeah.
Because in the interim time, you had messaged me the night before. I didn't sleep at all.
Yeah.
Because it was we're talking throbbing, with the pulse of I could feel the pulse of my heart in my knee. Because because you could feel the blood flow trying to get to the swollen area. And I'm like, oh no, this isn't fun. I know this feeling. I bruised or tore something. And then after about 9 days or so, the back of the knee didn't hurt, but I still feel just a little pulsing there where I'm like, ooh, if I'm flexing it too much. And then the pain switched to the front of the knee where I was like, oh, did I tear my meniscus? Did I bruise a knee? And I'm like, I realized I must have hurt the whole knee, but I only felt the back of the knee because that's what hurt the most.
Yeah.
And then once that healed, it was switched to the front of the knee where it was painful, but not so much that I couldn't move around. Only when I was
dealable.
Only when I was getting up from a very low position, I was like, ooh, this one's rough. If you've dinged your knee on something, nothing too bad. And only in the last 2 days have I had more than 3 hours of sleep at any given time. It
got to the point where we were going to send somebody to your house. We were that worried about you.
And I was, if I wasn't feeling better by this recording time, I was going to go get an x-ray. But outside of some stiffness, that's the thing too, because I was walking on it to make sure I got a little bit of blood flow.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to not walk on it. But the last 2 nights, it was tolerable enough that I was able to get proper night's sleep, especially when I took 4 weed gummies.
Hey,
I
if
took
it works.
I took like 60 milligrams, which is like 3 times what I normally would, and I could feel my pulse and everything. And then I fell asleep for like 8 hours straight. Woke up and my leg was like 90% better. Because the hard part was getting to sleep
and staying
and
asleep.
staying asleep more than 3 hours so your body can heal. My mind would be refreshed in 3 hours. It was like having a couple power naps, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the body is like, I'm still not good. So, dragging this out, I know a little long, but it was probably the most anything on me has hurt since I tore that quad in like 2010.
Jesus.
And I was like, oh, this isn't good at all. So, I guess the lesson is don't walk to your doctors. Don't go to your doctor. The only reason I did was my appointment was made for like 2 days after I got my results. And if I'm booking a mobility transit to them, you need a minimum of 24 hours, but there's no guarantee. You need to book like a week ahead to make sure you can get there. Mm-hmm. So for the follow-up that I'm going to do at the end of this month, I'm making sure that I'm booking at least a week ahead now that I know the date.
Yeah.
Because I am not dealing with this again. I do not want to agitate this more. Because big guy, but not just that, it also happens to be in the leg of mine that is my leg that is the disabled leg. So it's already got problems with swelling and joints and all this. So I'm like, thank God it wasn't my good leg where it would be like putting me way off balance. But at the same time, why does it have to happen at all?
Yeah, like I said, we were legitimately worried about you. So I'm very thankful that you were able to
and like
come out today.
I would have energy for like a couple hours at a time. I'd be like, let's go, let's record. And then like 3 hours later, I'm like, I'm taking a nap because my body's on fire.
Yeah, you're like, nope, that's enough of that BS.
And outside of that, it's just been getting used to taking metformin, taking my blood sugar. I've noticed a couple times that I've been dead. I've poked my finger and it hasn't worked, and I've had to do it 2 or 3 times.
Yep, that's
and
the way it is.
I also don't want to increase the pressure of it, or like the
sensitivity.
I put it to 3 out of 5. If I put it any higher, I don't want to lance my finger wide
it
open.
Hurts when you go to 5.
Yeah, so I'm not going to do that. Sugars are honestly okay. A couple times it's been like 9 or 10. Which for Americans they measure it differently than us.
Yeah, they measure it like hundreds or something.
They measure it in like the milliliter units or something.
Like that, yeah.
Whereas we measure it, it's a percentage of sugar in your blood. So for any Americans listening that don't know how it works, a normal blood reading for any regular person who's not diabetic is somewhere between 3.8 and 6.4% of your blood is sugar. Or, that's the percentage. Anybody who's over 6.5 is considered diabetic if it's on a regular basis. It can spike higher, but for most people, you don't want it to be more than 8. And mine was averaging about 10, which is what they discovered when I went and got my blood work done. So mildly diabetic.
Yeah.
I've been taking it after fasting, and it's somewhere in the realm of 6.2 to 7.2, which is actually 6.2 is like normal range. And then after I eat, it's between 8 and 10.
Yeah, which is normal.
So the metformin is going to take a while to get working. They're going to increase it. So I'm following it, and obviously cutting out more carbohydrates and getting more ketogenic stuff to help with that. Overall, pretty good. It's just been adjusting to this because every 12 hours I have to take the pill, and it's hard. I had to set alarms for myself so that if I fell asleep, I'd wake up and do it.
Yeah, that's a pain that I know well.
Once, the pain in my leg is gone, that's not going to be an issue. Like, it's still a little sore, but I should be fine. In like the next 4 or 5 days, I'm seeing Tom Segura in concert, and if it has to agitate my leg for that, I don't give a shit. I'm going to a concert.
You should go to that concert with a couple of edibles and have yourself a
I
grand
might
old
take
time.
one. I only have a little bit left because I went through like 4 bags worth in the last 2 weeks. I'm so glad I had them.
Yeah.
Because I did not want to be somebody who's like, I'm going to pop like 30 Tylenol.
Yeah, no.
No, honestly, the
most you'll do is fall asleep with this.
Yeah, that's what it really helps. It's the getting to fall asleep that was hard.
Yeah.
And once I was asleep, now I'm good. Yeah, so anyway, that's me. My life has been pain for 15 days.
Good times.
And now it's not so much pain, so now I can actually get back to being normal.
Speaking of normal, this week's show is going to be a little bit different because we did record weird news last week, but we had a technical problem. So we are going to use last week's weird news. So some of those stories still amusing, but maybe slightly out of date.
They're a little more evergreen than regular topical news anyway.
Exactly. So we are going to talk about some stuff in the normal news that is a little older, but it will make sense once we kind of frame it up.
50-50, and then our reviews are current reviews we could have used anyway. So.
Exactly. So anyway, guys, we're going to take a break here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. And what we're going to do is we're going to start things off with the Halloween season. This is my review of Event Horizon from Paramount Home Entertainment.
This is incredible. It's the Event Horizon. She's come back.
Event Horizon is the culmination of a secret government project to create a spacecraft capable of faster-than-light flight. The ship doesn't really go faster than light. What it does is it creates a dimensional gateway that allows it to jump instantaneously from one point of the universe to another light years away.
Where's she been for the last 7 years, Doctor?
That's what we're here to find out.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here, and I'm here to take a look at something really special I got from Paramount Home Entertainment. I'm talking about the Steelbook 4K version of Event Horizon. Now, this is a horror movie that I originally missed when it came out in the 90s. It was done by the same director who did Mortal Kombat, who did Resident Evil, and you know what? It's basically a haunted house movie in space. So not unlike Alien in that same kind of vibe, but completely weird in what you get. So you get actors like Sam Neill, you get Lawrence Fishburne, I think it's Sean Pertwee or John Pertwee, either way, the guy who's related to one of the Doctor Who people, and just a fantastic cast all around. And the story is, for those of you that haven't seen it, is there was a ship known as the Event Horizon that went missing a long time ago, and suddenly it just randomly shows up around the orbit of Neptune, and no one's quite sure why. So this search and rescue crew is sent out there to find out exactly what happened, and well, shenanigans ensue. An amazingly cool movie. In 4K, the movie looks fantastic. The only thing that looks a little weird is some of the 90s CG looks a little goofy, but for the most part, it holds up really, really, really well. Nice, rich blacks. I'm really, really, really impressed with that. It sounds amazing, too. I was listening to this on my Xbox Series X headset by Xbox, which has the Dolby Atmos, I want to say, in it. And just great directional audio in there, too. And even on my 5.1 surround sound system, this thing sounded pretty cool, too. Now, in terms of special features, you're going to find nothing new here, but what you are getting is everything that's been archival, including a feature-length documentary that's well over an hour and a half, detailing exactly what went into making this movie, everything from the special effects to how this movie even came to be, and even some stuff that was kind of cut from it, which no longer exists. They also talk about the infamous blood orgy scene, which is... that's a thing. But no, this is a very well put together set. If you have slept on this movie, I can't recommend this movie enough. I think it's one of the coolest horror movies I've seen. When it comes to scary movies set in space, I can't think of many that do it as well as this, and it is most definitely worth checking out. Once again, that is Event Horizon, the Steelbook in 4K, coming to us from Paramount Home Entertainment.
After 7 years in deep space,
18 people on board this ship when it disappeared. I want them all accounted for.
Opening outer door.
it came back abandoned.
Any crew? Negative. This place is a tomb.
But it didn't come back alone.
Captain Miller! I've got some problems here!
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek News.
Welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I am your host, Mike the Birdman. He's Alex, the producer. Well, we have a mix of news this week here on the Nerd News Network. And, well, we got to talk about several big elephants in the room that aren't us. And we're going to start with probably the most topical if you're a video game nerd. Last week, we saw the Last of Us movie preview. The full teaser came out. And then this week, during a Nintendo Direct, we saw the Super Mario Brothers movie from Illumination get debuted with its full trailer featuring some voices with Jordan.
It's me, Mario.
Yeah, with Chris Pratt. Who's the guy who plays Toad? That's one of the guys from
Jordan. I think Keegan Michael Key is
yeah, that's him.
It. Bowser is inspired.
Yeah, Jack Black sounds good.
You can still hear it's Jack Black, and it kind of has a Jack Black look to the eyes, which is okay. Who is playing Luigi?
That's Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny. Not bad. I'm okay with that.
I would have liked a more wah 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 sort of sounding guy. If it's just going to be Charlie Day doing Charlie Day, I won't be happy. He's too high pitched squealy. He might have been better for Toad. Mm-hmm. Seth Rogen is going to be Donkey Kong, and that is he going to be like smoking bananas or something? No, they won't do that because it's
kids
Nintendo.
Movie, yeah.
But he is going to laugh. It's going to be like, I don't want it to be them. I want them to immerse themselves. Jack Black is not being Jack Black. He's being Bowser.
Who's the guy who plays the Koopa Wizard? Because he sounds exactly like.
Is that maybe going to be Fred Armisian? I think he's in it too. Princess Peach is going to be somebody. I forget her name. I think it's somebody famous. Who's playing Kamek, the Wizard Koopa?
I don't know.
Oh no, who's playing? I want to know who's playing the Penguin.
Yeah, do you yield? That was so funny.
What I love is that it's clearly like they're pulling him from the N64 game.
Yeah, like it looks good. I mean, honestly, the only thing, there are 2 points for me that I'm not thrilled about. It's Chris Pratt doing Chris Pratt, and we all knew this was going to be a thing because
he's doing the Diet Coke Brooklyn accent.
Well, here's the thing. He even said in an interview, and I remember this quote from Twitter because it was on IGN, it was on GameSpot, it was on Kotaku, it was everywhere. And the quote was something along the lines of, it's going to be a different take on Mario that you've never heard before. No, this is Star-Lord, or this is Emmett from the Lego movie, or the asshole from Jurassic Park.
He's not even attempting anything but the lightest of accent. And people want to argue, you need to have an Italian. Well, Bob Hoskins actually did a decent Mario. The movie sucked.
Yeah.
It's fun. We love it now for its nostalgic cheese. But he was a decent sounding and even decent looking Mario, and he was British.
Yeah.
So it can be done. And a lot of people were like, you should have had somebody that could do it like Lou Albano. I'm like, yeah, okay. From the cartoon show, Captain Lou's voice. You know what? I'm trying to think who they could have gotten to do that. You could have gotten somebody that could mold their voice to sound like that, like gruff. You'd have to get a guy probably in his 50s doing the voice, but they're going for a name power. And what's crazy is if you hear the trailer in all the other languages they released it in, they're all in French and German and Japanese and anything. They're all attempting the martinet, like it's a me, Mario, the high pitch, and they all do it fantastic. Why does Chris Pratt not even try?
Well, even Tara Strong, who's known for voicing My Little Pony, she's Harley Quinn. She put out a picture of her and Charles Martinet saying, Charles needs a little bit of help today and a little bit of our love. Why aren't you casting voice actors in their iconic roles? Because you think of, let's look back at the Sonic movie for a moment. The woman who plays Tails from the video games is Tails in the fucking movie.
You could have had anybody. You could have had all these famous people play everybody else.
Yeah.
And then just had Mario be Mario's voice. We've heard Mario's voice for 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, just give give him a chance give him a month to record the movie, see what it sounds like with a test audience.
Here's a question. Could it be, and it's probably not right, this is how I would see them fixing this, could it be that Mario's inner like let's say he's a human transported to that world, right? We don't necessarily have to see him as Chris Pratt. Like, we don't want another Lego movie or something like that where it's real. But let's say he's transported in there and he's Mario in there, but he looks different than what he would look like in the real world or whatever, or where he comes from. What if the Chris Pratt voice is his inner monologue, and when he speaks, it's Martinet's voice?
I'd be okay with that.
But they're not going to do that.
No.
Because
Hollywood.
I'm surprised Miyamoto was okay with this, because everybody else seems to match their character, and he doesn't at all.
The guy who plays Toad sounds really good.
The other issue I have with it, you said number 1. Number 2 for me, I don't know if it's the same for you, is his eyes don't look right.
Yeah, and this is something I know it's meant to be funny, and I don't even know whether it's real or not. They took some chunk out of Mario's ass for some reason. Okay, sure. But yeah, it looks weird, but look at what happened when the internet bitched about Sonic and how quickly that got fixed.
Yeah, but Sonic wasn't ready to come out in 4 months.
Well,
5 months.
It comes out in what, April? Yeah, April.
Yeah.
So
like
they're probably close to picture lock.
It's easier to replace a voice than it is to replace this. But like, are you really going to replace Chris Pratt now?
No.
They should.
Yeah.
Or when the Blu-ray comes out, they should have the option to switch it over to Martinet.
If that was a limited edition track you could buy from the Nintendo store, it would sell out instantly.
They're going to get... The whole movie rests on his voice.
Yeah.
And they're going to get lambasted.
Yeah.
People are going to be
I
very
think Jack
upset.
Black's going to carry it.
He already... Did you see the trailer they made? The trailer for it, where they're having the stars introduce it. They couldn't even have them in a studio for this $100-some-odd million movie. They had to record from
Zoom.
From their Zoom, not even their phones, like the lowest quality video.
Yeah, I don't... Okay, like, I come from a TV and radio production background, and I don't understand, because, Alex, did you ever see the more fun edition of Spider-Man No Way Home?
No.
Okay, so in the beginning of that, they do an introduction, or it's got Garfield, Maguire, and Holland, and they're all doing it from their Zoom accounts at home. I'm like, you're telling me wherever they live, close to New York City, Los Angeles, wherever, you couldn't hire a production crew to bring out a 4K camera, shoot the footage, and bring it back to the studio.
Or send each one of them a Lumina, like the 4K webcam. You couldn't just have them click record their little clip using that and send it in.
Yeah, and then use Zoom to maybe sync it up so they can still react in live real time. Like, this is stuff a college class can do. That bothers me.
This is stuff that college kids have access to. Not to mention these are multi-millionaire people who don't even have a proper webcam.
Yeah, like that blows my mind. And then, like I said, the other big elephant in the room is the Last of Us trailer came out last week. And the reason I'm talking about it after the Mario movie, because now we're entering an era. Video game movies are getting taken seriously now. We've had a big budget Mortal Kombat, which did okay. I think it got a sequel.
Critically, it did not do well.
Yeah.
And
I think it was lukewarm at best.
It also did not do well in theaters.
I know it did well on home video, but that's not saying
it
much.
did. It was supposed to be a home video release, and then they moved it to theaters when they thought it was stronger. It needed a higher budget.
Yeah.
And if they do another one, hopefully they do, because there were issues with it, but it was really good for what budget they had and the fact that it was produced during the pandemic.
Yeah. So you look at something like The Last of Us, and that's been shooting for a while, and it's got Pedro Pascal as Joel. I can't remember.
Lady Mormont.
Yeah, Lady Mormont, whose name I can't remember. I'm sorry.
The little girl, and spoiler for Game of Thrones, she's badass and is one of the only people that like is super loyal the whole time to House Stark, and she goes and she kills a giant that crushes her in its hand, but she's stabbing it in the face before she dies. She dies really cool.
Yeah.
And is tougher than like 90% of the people that are bigger than her.
And then it has Gabriel Luna, who plays Joel's brother Tommy. And it's got a fairly amazing cast. So it's got Bill Offerman as Bill from the game.
Nick Offerman as Bill.
Nick Offerman as Bill, sorry. And it looks really good. And that comes out next year on HBO Max. And then the Fallout TV show.
I'm worried that there's a bit of burnout from all the re-releases and releases of that series. It's going to catch a lot of new people, but I don't know how many gamers they're going to convert to watch it.
I think you're going to get the hardcore fans, like me, for example. That's a given. But we're at an era in video game movies, because like I said, now we've got The Last of Us as a TV show by HBO, so you know it's got money behind it. Mario's coming to theaters.
Real HBO, not HBO Max, where you're worried it's going to get canceled. It's on the number
Flagship.
one premium cable channel in the world. Like,
And-
we're talking actual movie budgets on this.
And Amazon has the Fallout TV series, which there was a set leak a couple of weeks ago, which we did talk about here on the show.
Yeah.
And me and Alex were watching some more detailed photos of this before we started the show. And it looks really authentic.
Amazon is hit or miss.
I haven't seen any of the Rings of Power show.
It's terrible. And not for the reasons people are online completely going nuts. They're like, oh, they're like, the big thing now is people and certain groups of
Fandoms.
people saying there's no black people in Middle Earth. There's no this is fuck off.
Yeah, sorry.
Has no issue with it. My issue with it is
It's boring?
It's boring and it's really poor quality.
That's unfortunate.
They spent $250 million for the rights. Then they spent another 200 some odd million on making it, and then another it's like $1 billion project.
It's like $1 billion,
And
isn't it?
it looks really green screeny. It looks worse than Game of Thrones, significantly worse than any season of Game of Thrones. The costumes are laughably bad, like skin tight pajamas that are painted to look like armor with a tiny little piece of armor on top of it because they didn't want to make full armor suits. Wigs that look like they were from your local costume shop. It's like surprisingly boring. And I think a lot of people have tuned out in the last couple episodes so far.
Yeah, I'm going to wait till the whole series is out, then I'm just going to binge it.
And it's right now, it's kind of a disaster for them. They won't admit it, but it's not getting the viewers they thought it was going to get. But then on the other side of the coin, you have The Boys and you have Invincible, who've been super successful on the platform.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a success rate. Again, it's 50-50. This is looking pretty good. It's all going to depend on the directors. We'll see how this turns out.
So back to my original thing. So like I said, we've got Fallout TV, Last of Us TV, Mario movie. What's the next big video game adaptation that can be successful?
Final Fantasy VII.
You think they'll actually nail it?
It's going to depend on what Sony... If Sony does end up buying Square, which has still been rumored that this might still happen, if Sony buys Square, we will get some television or movie production, and it won't be like animated. They won't risk that.
They'll do
It
live
will
action?
be a Columbia Pictures live action, and don't expect crazy anime hair. I don't know if they would make it a movie. That might be something to make a miniseries if they sign a big deal. Right now they got a deal with Netflix.
Yeah.
If that deal gets up in the next couple of years and somebody's up for bidding on some of these Sony properties because they don't have their own streaming service anymore and they don't have really any cable channels anymore.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy is one that would work, and I don't think Final Fantasy 4 or 6 would be too difficult because it's so still fantasy.
It's so exposition heavy.
And it's very fantasy still, a lot of special effects and all this. But Final Fantasy 7 would work because
it's the most well-known.
It's the most well-known. It's also the most accessible from a costuming standpoint.
Okay, fair.
Like
fair,
you got the ridiculous straps and the swords and all this. They could tone it down. They could alter it. They could make it the same. Whatever they wanted to do. It's because the only other one that would be even easier to make would probably be 8 because there's almost very little fantasy stuff other than the monsters. But story wise, 7 could work. Metal Gear.
Yeah, Metal Gear would be a huge
as a movie, not as a series. I could see them greenlighting that. Mega Man wouldn't work.
Mega Man would be good animated if it was high budget.
It's going to be the mature sort of stuff. You know what would make a really, really good Amazon or Netflix or Paramount, whatever streaming series? Devil May Cry.
There was an anime series, but I don't know how faithful.
Live action. We're thinking Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets
I could see that.
Meets Supernatural.
I could see that. That'd be fun.
But with swords and crazy demons.
That'd be fine. I mean, like, one of the things that's fallen off the radar completely because the series, it had its moments, and I'm one of the few defenders of it, was the Paramount Plus Halo series, mostly because of costuming for me. And I didn't mind the guy they cast as Chief, even though it was porn stash.
It's the
It's
story,
strayed too far from the lore.
story issues with it, and it's probably gonna. It's coming back. I don't know.
That second season better have a hard, abrupt turn.
Well, because look at how poorly the game is being received.
Yeah,
they
delayed the next season until like next March.
There's a lot of stuff wrong with it. They're in a free fall with the franchise.
Yeah, and they don't realize that they could have turned this around.
Yeah. Speaking of Microsoft franchises, Gears of War would work as a series, not as a movie series.
If they did that as seriously and gritty as,
but it's still a
Band
little,
of Brothers.
It's still a little goofy with how they.
It's over the top at times. Yeah, like Coltrane, for example.
If Microsoft wanted to get in on the fantasy stuff, they could just do an Elder Scrolls show.
Yes,
and set it not on the plot of any game, just set it in the world.
Yeah, and just say they could visit. Hey, we're going to Morrowind or in the province of Skyrim or something. Yeah, fuck yes.
I mean, we'll see how the Dungeons and Dragons movie goes, but I don't know.
I saw the first trailer for that in theaters this past week when I went to go see Smile.
And he goes, "You're the bard. What do you do?" And he's like, where he dances at the end.
He plays a lute.
So I mean, you could do that. I'm trying to think just quickly any other major titles that are mainstream enough.
I think Metroid could pull it off, maybe as a series.
Nintendo wouldn't do it. Not as a live action.
I'm going to pitch it as a animated series on Netflix, like Castlevania.
They would only do it if it was PG, and I don't know how they would do that PG with live action.
Well, you're only killing monsters.
It's too scary for children. I don't think they would do it.
Yeah, because Konami owns...
you would have a better chance of them greenlighting a second Donkey Kong show.
Or I want them to do something with Kirby. Actually, there's a friend of mine...
Star Fox as an animated series would work.
That would be really cool. Because, again, it's dog fighting, and you're fighting mostly robots anyway.
As far as any other Nintendo franchise...
Kirby animated.
Zelda.
Zelda, yes.
A Zelda movie series. Not TV show.
Yes.
A Zelda movie series that tells the story. The first movie could literally be
the first game.
The simplistic story of the first game. And you could work your way through that because there's a lot of... They could add little things here and there, like the old man he meets that give him the swords.
Yeah.
It could be a very simple, 1.5
action adventure movie.
1.5 hour movie. You could do that. Or if you didn't want to go with the original game that has very little story, you could do Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
Like on the island, or Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Any other franchises that would work? Like a lot of the fantasy type ones would have to be very high budget. So not a lot of Nintendo stuff because it's very kidsy, cutesy. Microsoft, a lot of it's too gritty, very R-rated stuff. Sony, Infamous.
Infamous would be a fun TV show.
TV show, especially if it's made in the... I haven't played the first two, actually, but if it's made in the Second Son thing, very topical. Remember what Second Son was about?
About everybody gets powers now.
No, but do you remember what the main thing was? Native American gets powers, and it's about the mistreatment of his people in the community and things that, like, it's about systemic racism. This was 8 years ago.
Yeah, let's say, 2014.
Right now, with what's going on in the States and Canada, there's a lot of resurgence and actually a surge of Indigenous creators.
Yeah.
They could get a bunch of grant money and you could make a wicked Infamous Second Son adaptation. The powers are easy enough that you could do it on a fairly low budget.
Yeah.
Like a budget a la the Berlanti universe type stuff.
Yeah.
And just make it a serious drama about what's going on. How do you hide this from the government? The other ones that would work, and it might kind of defeat the purpose of the games. Well, maybe not. Adapting some of those games to like Life is Strange.
Yeah.
Into series. You could adapt them one for the most part. There are people that will never play them. But
the story's compelling.
And the stories don't require really a lot of special effects.
No, just good actors.
And there's a lot of really good story. You could do it almost like making that the storyboards. That would work. So there are ways to do this, and there are very good narrative driven things that you could use. Hopefully we don't get too many more zombie adaptations. I don't want Days Gone. I don't want Days Gone. I don't want Dead Rising. I don't want...
Dead Rising has been done, the film, terribly.
On Crackle.
Yeah, it was terrible. And I'll tell you this. I firmly believe after Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, which has its moment, I will grant it that, but after the Netflix adaptation of Resident Evil, that franchise is effectively media dead for 10 years.
Yeah, so that's why I think Devil May Cry would work better. Stupid me, Yakuza, Like a Dragon.
Yeah, that'd be a great TV series.
They're ridiculous. Make them over the top and ridiculous. Set it in the Yakuza world. You know, you'd probably have to call it Like a Dragon or Yakuza Like a Dragon here to get that title. You could have some real wacky fun with that, especially on like Netflix or something. The only other thing I could think of,
Grand Theft Auto TV series.
I don't know if they would do it.
If you set each season in a different era, like here's the Liberty City season, here's Vice City.
If you just called it Grand Theft Auto Stories and you made it an anthology where each episode is a 1 hour Twilight Zone type thing where it takes place in the different eras and different cities from the games. You could do that, and you could do it without any real special effects other than whatever you'd have for The Sopranos.
Yeah, basically anything involving cars. You could do, like, you could even bring back the guy who plays Trevor.
Stupid me. Perfect for movies.
Yeah.
One final one.
Yep.
BioShock.
Yes, and I think that's been in development hell for years.
But now maybe we could get some movement on there. That or the Metro games could probably work, and
especially now.
And they might want to do it because it's topical, but also supporting the writer and supporting the people that wrote it, and like because I believe that's a Ukrainian book series.
Yeah, right? We'd have to ask our resident person who knows all things Russian and Ukrainian.
But
Aaron,
I'm pretty sure that is that's what it is, or at least one of the books of the writers from there. Regardless, those would work, and I just don't want too many more zombie things.
We need a break from that.
Yeah, we need a break from zombie things. We need a break from horror things. It would be nice just having a cool action game. Hell, even it's got to be something that's realistic enough. I was going to say Crackdown, but it's too over the top.
Yeah.
Far Cry? Ubisoft needs something.
A Far Cry game or a Far Cry movie would be fun that isn't crap.
I forgot there was an Uwe Boll movie.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. So we're going to do one more movie story, and then we have to talk about the other giant elephant in the room. This story comes from comicbook.com. New Star Trek movie removed from Paramount release calendar, which is kind of surprising considering we just had New York City Comic Con. Well, it looks like Star Trek fans are going to have to wait even longer than expected to see the fourth film in the Chris Pine movie franchise. Pine and most of the main cast from the Kelvin films are on board for a fourth installment, which was supposed to hit theaters in 2023. Unfortunately, that is no longer the case. Paramount has opted to take the new Star Trek off the calendar entirely. On Tuesday, Paramount officially removed Star Trek 4 from its release calendar. The film had initially been set to hit theaters on June 9th, 2023, before being delayed to December 22nd of the same year. Now the movie is on the shelf for the foreseeable future. This shouldn't come as too much of a surprise considering the Star Trek has just lost its director. WandaVision and Game of Thrones director Matt Shakman was originally tapped to helm the project, but he recently left in order to direct the Fantastic Four movie for Marvel Studios. The search is now on for a replacement. Lindsay Beer and Geneva Robertson DeWalt wrote the screenplay. Quote, Matt Shakman is an incredibly talented filmmaker, and we regret the timing didn't align for him to direct our upcoming Star Trek film. Paramount Pictures said in a statement after Shakman's department, we are, quote, grateful for his many collaborations, are excited for the creative vision of this next chapter, and look forward to bringing it to audiences around the world. While there's no director in place for the next Star Trek film at the moment, and the big screen future of the franchise remains a focal point for Paramount, quote, going forward, I'm focused on our franchises, Paramount Pictures president Brian Robbins told Variety earlier this year, we are fortunate in that we have amazing franchises which we need to lean into. We have adult franchises like Mission Impossible, A Quiet Place, Transformers, Star Trek, and we have family franchises like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and SpongeBob. You have got to have these multi-year plans for each franchise. You can't just make a movie and see how it does and then decide to make another, because if you do that, it'll be years between sequels. Like Sonic, we're going to take a spin-off character, Knuckles, and do a miniseries on Paramount Plus, which will transition us into the third Sonic movie with
That's
lots
actually
of
a
Easter
smart
eggs.
move. That's a pretty smart move, actually.
Yeah. Finally, he's quoted as saying, that planning is what I'm focused on, as well as filling out our slate with filmmakers that we're passionate about, who want to tell stories that they have passion for. That allows us to greenlight things like the new movie. We have been hearing from Matt Stone and Trey Parker, the South Park guys, who are working on a movie with Kendrick Lamar, and that's so far out we could break through the zeitgeist. And you know what? I'm not surprised to see the movie taken off the calendar.
Couple reasons. One, Chris Pine's getting kind of old looking. This sounds kind of dumb, like me saying this. Have you seen him recently?
Other than the D&D movie, no.
He's aged like 10 years in two. The pandemic was not kind to him. And I mean, Shatner and other guys played the characters when they were older, but it's going to be kind of jarring how much older he looks than the rest of the cast.
Yeah, because the last Star Trek Beyond was what, 2017?
16 or 17.
It's been a while.
Or is it maybe 18? I own it and I've never watched it because
Same here.
I got 5 minutes in and how goofy and terrible that joke was at the beginning of the movie. And then I got insulted by how they had the ship underwater and went out right into the atmosphere. That would have torn them into a million pieces. I was so visibly angry that I stood up and took it out and put it on my shelf and never touched it again.
See, I'm going to watch it because I'm very curious, and I know it's something we should talk about on Future Imperfect at some point.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, I think the problem is with the Star Trek franchise, you have now hit it hot on television. Maybe just leave it there for a while.
It would almost be better in a year or two to do
a Discovery movie.
To do a straight no. There's too much division between the fans on that one.
Well, I don't know. I mean, do you think it would do numbers?
No. There would be a significant more. There's very few people that are actively watching it that genuinely enjoy it enough to pay $12 to see it in theaters. There are people that get it as part of their package.
I might see it as a curiosity, but I wouldn't seek it out.
I think a Strange New Worlds movie would work better if they wanted to transition, like have that movie end with Kirk taking over the ship, and that's how it leads into the original show. You could do that.
Okay. Okay.
Or tell a different story altogether within the universe. The other hurdle they have to cross is Chekhov. The actor passed away.
Anton Yelchin, yeah.
Very tragically. And was it a car accident?
Yeah, he had an accident at the end of his laneway.
You cannot replace the Chekhov actor.
No.
So what they'll have to do is maybe they'll replace him with that alien, the skinny-looking alien that was in the cartoon show from the 70s.
The cat person?
No, the cat person wasn't. It was the
weird bug-looking guy.
The guy that looked like the aliens from Close Encounters.
Oh, yeah.
Long neck, almost like a brontosaurus with their head.
Yeah.
You couldn't do that back in the day, but you could do it now with CG. Maybe as like a nod to having him, because he in the cartoon he was there, I think, replacing Chekhov.
But so yeah, I think he was the weapons officer.
But everybody else is getting older.
Yeah.
I mean, we're getting to the point now where by the time a movie were to come out, it'd be like 8 years after the last film, and I don't know if people want to see. People were really upset with that third movie, and it didn't do well. Because people were very upset with the second movie because Paramount, and as much as I like them,
they pulled a fast one on us.
They openly lied. They lied to your face and said it's not Khan. And then what did they do? It was Khan.
Yeah.
You can't do a press junket and say it is not Wrath of Khan, and then the entire movie is an exact retelling of Wrath of Khan with one flip at the end. That was faith breaking for me, and that's actually what made me absolutely hate everything.
And it's a little
everything that the producers and that J.J. Abrams has ever made since then. I will not watch anything he makes because he looked into the camera and lied to my face. It wasn't a joke. He lied about what it was. I would not have paid money to see the movie if I was going to be that offended by it.
It's different when Marvel is cheeky with their stuff.
Cheeky is one thing. It's one thing to say this isn't the story you think it is, because that they could have said that. They didn't say that. He looked in the camera and said, "This is not Wrath of Khan. He's not playing Khan."
Yeah,
that was a bold-faced lie. I don't know how you get away with that with your career.
Yeah, I guess because they saw what was coming out of the Marvel playbook and they thought they could do the same thing.
And then the second movie makes money and gets horribly, horribly reviewed. Third movie comes out and it tanks. Why? Because it looked cheaper too. So I'm not trying to crap on them. It's just I do not like J.J. Abrams. I don't like his production style or anything. And we've seen some of that transition into Discovery. We're seeing them come out of that with Lower Decks being a fun show for what it is. It's not the greatest Trek, but it's a fun homage, and it has fun moments for all of us that are fans. Prodigy is a really good show.
Yeah, surprisingly good.
A legitimately good Trek show. Strange New World is the best Trek we've had since 2004. Period. End of story. Anybody wants to argue that Discovery or Picard is better, you're just...
I would like to hear your arguments.
You are objectively wrong. It's not as good. You can love it, you can like it, but even from a technical production standpoint, Strange New Worlds is a better produced, better written, better paced show. It just is. And then the rest of it's up to personal preference.
Yeah.
So we're on the right track. I don't know if I want to see a regression back to the J.J. Abrams style of making the movies. I was only interested in seeing a fourth film when at one point Quentin Tarantino was on board to write and direct it. That would have gone in a very interesting, different way. I might not have liked it, but I would have been willing to see it.
Yeah.
I don't know if J.J. Abrams and his team is on board if I'm willing to see it in theaters.
I'd like to see the Russo brothers do one.
Russo brothers, or give it to another auteur, somebody who's going to think outside the box, be a little different. You want to, give it to Denis Villeneuve, the guy who did Blade Runner and Dune. Give that to him. Give that to him. Or was it Duncan Jones that made Source Code? I think he made, was it Source Code and Moon? He's the son of David Bowie.
Yeah.
And he's made some really, give it to somebody who's going to do it on like a low budget, but give it a real flair and real twist. Somebody who knows how to make genre pictures and not just popcorn garbage.
Yeah.
Or give it to one of the James Bond directors. Or if you're going to go big, who is the guy that did the Pirates of the Caribbean movies? Gore Verbinski, right?
Yeah.
Give it to somebody that's going to give it a look.
He did the third one, I want to say.
Yeah, or just blow everybody's minds and be like, hey, Nicholas Meyer, you're 80. Will you be willing to direct another Trek movie?
What about one of the guys from one of the Harry Potter franchises?
Like Chris Columbus?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, or David Yates, I think, did the later ones.
Yeah.
Little dark, little bit on that. Or give it to the people that have been making the Mission Impossible films.
Yeah, why not?
They would know how to make it realistic and fun. The trick is making sure it has that balance of
sci-fi,
contemplation and smartness. That's why I'm thinking Dune, one of those sorts of kind of directors.
Okay, I thought of one unconventional choice. He directed Bumblebee, Travis Knight.
Okay, but it's got to be a director that's going to be able to take control and not let studio interference play if they don't like the vision.
Mm-hmm.
So almost I know he only works with, or mostly works with, Fox and Warner sometimes. Ridley Scott would be neat.
Ridley Scott Star Trek, that's interesting.
Or give it to some old British guy name some other old British person who's directed films, who made a lot of boring films in the 70s and 80s, and let them do a Star Trek now and see what happens.
Yeah, why not, right?
Give it to somebody who's going to give it some air to breathe and not be a flash cut with flashing images every 3 seconds where you have to have sunglasses on to avoid the flares. Give it to somebody who cares. And there are plenty of people out there that can do that. And maybe we will see something like that. I just don't know if you can capture. The 2009 movie had a little bit of that magic where it was not too J.J. Abrams. It had the uniqueness, but it was an action film, but I could still like it. And then it went over the top.
Yeah, it got goofy. So this next story we're going to talk about, this is something that is the other big elephant in the room. This happened last week, but it caught developers by surprise. Didn't catch the general public by surprise. This is the giant Google-sized elephant in the room from Kotaku.com. Google kills Stadia, its cloud gaming service, refunding everyone. Google is shutting down its video game streaming service Stadia on January 18th, 2023, the company announced today, so this was last week. All purchases will be refunded and the technology will still be used for YouTube and other parts of its business, but the consumer-facing app and the storefront will be shuttered for good less than 5 years after it launched, joining the graveyard of other projects Google has abandoned. Quote, and while Stadia's approach to streaming games for consumers was built on a strong technology foundation, it hadn't gained the traction with users that we expected, so we've made the difficult decision to begin winding down our Stadia streaming service, Stadia VP Phil Harrison wrote in a blog post. Quote, we are grateful to the dedicated Stadia players that have been with us from the start. We will be refunding all Stadia hardware purchases made through the Google Store. and all game and add-on content made through the Stadia store. Players will still continue to have access to their games library and play through January 18th, 2023, so they can complete their final play sessions. The gaming industry veteran went on to say that refunds are expected to be completed by mid-January, and note that while Stadia is done, the tech behind it will be available to, quote, industry partners for other joint ventures, such as AT&T's recent attempt to bring Batman Arkham Knights to smartphones via streaming. Signs Google was ready to bail have been coming for a while now. But one of the more eye-browsing ones was when Ubisoft announced Assassin's Creed Mirage would come to Amazon's Luna service, but not Stadia, the first game in the blockbuster series to do so. Google talked a massive game back when Stadia was first unveiled at the Game Developers Conference in 2019, but it was clear by the time the service had launched later that year that it wasn't ready for prime time. The tech was impressive and promised features were missing, and the launch library wasn't very impressive. While Stadia did continue to add new games, most had to be purchased a la carte, making it a steep investment for the casual audience it was aimed at. Then Xbox Game Pass came along and married a huge library with a single monthly fee. Stadia, meanwhile, reportedly struggled to get big games on its platform, spending tens of millions to attract titles like Red Dead Redemption 2. And then it just kind of goes on like this.
Yeah,
we caught the news early only because we got an email from, I think it was like Mobile Syrup, and they were like, Google kills it. And we're like, wait, what? And then every news wire had it.
I actually knew about an hour before it went public, only because my brother works at Google. He's like, there's a Google-wide email, and he goes, keep an eye out for Stadia message. It was going to happen that day. And I said, were they canceled? And he's just like, ... because he couldn't say directly until, and then I noticed like 30 minutes later, 45 minutes later, it hit. And I said, with this, he goes, yeah, nobody here knew. And he doesn't work in that division, but it's in the same building.
Mm-hmm. And
he's like, yeah, like they had contingencies as was revealed later on.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain things that I knew before I invested in it in the first place. I asked my brother, I said, what happens if they get shut down early, like sometimes happens with their new projects, and actually happens a lot.
The Google Graveyard, for example.
And he's like, he goes, at the time even, because I baited it before it was like available pretty much anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like my brother had access like 6 months or almost a year before it even was announced. And he's like, check this out on, his secure laptop. And I'm like, okay, can't look at anything else. He's like, and I was playing a game, and when we were done, he's like, that's not on my computer. And I was like, what? But of course,
so cool.
Me, I'm not going to say anything or report anything. And it was because he needed to have two players to try it out. If we could try two-player together, because they were experimenting with things.
Mm-hmm.
And, I didn't get to know any of the underlying tech, didn't know what it was called. I just was playing a game with him, and I had no idea what it was until after the fact. But I said, what's the contingency? He's like, he goes, if they cancel it, they'll refund money, or they'll transfer your games to Steam, or they'll do this. He goes, there's like whole books of contingencies for these sorts of projects, not knowing which one was which. So I knew we weren't going to be left high and dry.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't say anything publicly, right? Because it's like, I don't know for sure. It's just I'm going on secondhand knowledge based on the kinds of contingencies that a company like that has, not anything concrete, nothing that could be reported on. But when they were refunding things, I'm like, they're refunding hardware. That I wasn't expecting, and neither was my brother or a lot of people at his work. So I can't go into any more details there. He hasn't told me anything else other than what's been publicly available. But he's like, this is something where, he goes, we had a feeling it was probably going to happen eventually, because when they stopped producing games internally and that, a lot of people started shifting their projects into other things or maintenance and that. But it's not like it's shutting down. It's not really dead. So for anybody listening,
it's just the consumer front.
For anybody listening that's like, I said it was going to die. It was a terrible idea. I told you so. It's not really dying though, because the consumer facing one of the direct to consumer model is gone. What people don't realize is
it powers Nintendo stuff, right?
The Ubisoft streaming they use on their own app, the Uplay, whatever it is.
Yeah. Uplay Plus or something.
That is Stadia. It uses Stadia. They're a partner. They're the biggest partner. And they're probably pissed at this, by the way. I would not be surprised if Ubisoft is in panic mode, because their entire backend, it's there, but like they had marketing. Anything that's like printed on boxes, like like Skull and Bones, they would have already had that stuff printed, right? But then they moved that to next year.
Yeah, March.
But like, what's coming this Sparks of Hope isn't having. I don't think that was going to have. No, that was Nintendo. So that might be one of the reasons why they moved the game, because they have to reprint all the labels.
That's annoying.
Because like or all the marketing and advertising for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is what it is there. But so here's what, if you look in their public documents, what's been confirmed. Ubisoft uses it in their backend. You saw that they are using it for, was it Samsung was trying to bring it certain games?
Yeah.
It's not just that. Nintendo. Any game, the Nintendo that says streaming copy, is using Stadia. The reason it still plays like crap is because the Switch is trying to use like 20 megabit service through their Wi-Fi, which the Switch's Wi-Fi is terrible. The Switch's internet, Ethernet is terrible. You get like 30 megs a second. The hardware can't process, like, the reason it's blocking all it is because it's limited by the hardware you're using.
But say,
the back end is fast enough to run it.
Mm-hmm.
It's all this wireless crap. So Nintendo uses it for that. It won't go away because they use Stadia for all those games and Google Cloud services for all of your cloud saves.
It wouldn't surprise me if this is how they handle developer things. Like if they want to give you a hands-on preview.
This is also how they handle, those, like, what was it, the Mario, like the Tetris 1 versus 100 and all those.
Yeah.
The games that are like those multiplayer online, the massive ones they were doing on the Nintendo online accounts.
Yeah.
It's all handled through the Google backend.
I figured as much.
Because you think Nintendo servers can handle it?
No.
No, they can't. They just don't. So they've got to partner with Nintendo. They've got to partner with Ubisoft. They've got to partner with some other studios. It's probably going to be stuff that you see, like, maybe they won't sell it to consumers, but they'll make a package that goes to hospitals or to hotel rooms. And that's what Amazon was trying to do, was trying to get Luna into hotel rooms with Fire Sticks and everything.
Yeah.
They're going to do stuff like that. It's going to be in that market. And on the business scalability end, that's what they're going to use it for. And they might integrate it into some sort of streaming platform background on YouTube. The tech behind it is more advanced streaming than what YouTube currently uses. So they can grandfather or move it into integrating it that way. There are ways. It's not dead as in, hey, a lot of the other Google projects we've shot in the head and thrown it out back into a graveyard. This is like, hey, our direct-to-consumer model is hemorrhaging money, but our business-to-business model is working great. So let's keep that working.
The one thing that bothers me about all this, because I've been watching a lot of coverage on this, is certain developers found out on Twitter, and they're like, we have a game in November.
This is something that you can look on Reddit, that Google's internal employees are leaking information that normally they're not supposed to. Google has internal blogs where they can make their own internal memes and jokes and sometimes make fun of their own company. It's part of their culture to be allowed to do that. Like they make memes making fun of it, and like
they understand it.
And some of them are like, oh great, here it'll be like customer service right now, internal customer service right now, and it'll be like somebody with their head on fire and or all this. But all the questions were like, what happened? They didn't tell Ubisoft. I know they didn't tell Ubisoft because that's what was reported by a lot of these insider leaks online. Ubisoft didn't know until after it was announced publicly. Half of the team didn't know that they came in the morning,
got hands email,
45-minute meeting. 45 minutes come to a meeting. Nobody's fired. You're all being reassigned. We're shutting down. And like their argument is they don't want to let that information leak, but the small developers, the ones that had signed little contracts, they're the ones complaining. It sucks. They're going to probably help them out, and by giving
hope so.
Giving them a little back end, hopefully, especially if they were only developing, like if their only streaming platform was that, they should get a little extra money. They should get something. I mean, how hard is it for a little indie guy
to port it to PlayStation?
To send the little indie guy $4,000 for his time, or even $10,000 to help port it somewhere else, or here for your time and effort. Hopefully this lets you run a couple months to get it ported to something else.
I hope it was built into their contracts if X happens.
Now, again, can't quote me on this. Keep an eye out. Ubisoft has been hurting for money. Keep an eye out if there's going to be a big class action lawsuit or a big lawsuit between them, because a company of that size doing joint marketing, this was a multi even up to hundreds of millions of dollars potentially deal that they had with them because of exclusivity, because of them joint marketing all their games back and forth, having that tiered service with them, all this. Think about how much money they had rolled into commercials and stuff, advertising that showed that logo. They have to pull everything.
Yeah.
There's millions of dollars in commercials and development time and all this. Do not be surprised if there's like, hey, we're taking you to court for $100 million. And they might win, because a contract that large with them would justify somebody in that team, even if it had to be locked down, somebody at Ubisoft's legal should have been informed at least 2 to 3 months ahead of time before they started ramping up marketing for some of their games. And the fact that they were blindsided by this too, from everything that's been reported online, that's a big problem. And that sounds like somebody internally just said, fuck it, we're shutting it down, without actually checking with their lawyers to see if that's okay to do.
Yeah, like there's something about this decision that screams hasty and not well thought
And
out.
I don't know if it's Phil Harrison. The problem with Phil Harrison is he's a terrible executive. If you look into his history, he's been fired from every job he's ever had. He's never left on his own. He's always fired for running the company into the ground, and yet he always gets afloat. There's already people making YouTube little mini documentaries about how he's only hired because he knows people that will hire him, not because he's talented. He is the guy that tanked I think it was EA for a bit. He tanked PlayStation for a bit. He tanked Microsoft. He worked for like 3 major companies during console launches, and every launch he's done has been disastrous.
Yeah, like this is bad. Like now, when it comes to me and Stadia, I got a free one via YouTube. They gave me one.
Oh, when you signed up for premium.
Yeah, and then you bought one.
I had a Founders Edition, which the controller might be worth something eventually. I don't.
Although that still works. You can
in USB mode if you're using it for like emulation on PC. Here's the thing: they are. Don't know if I can confirm it directly, but there's talk that they're working on a driver that will let you use it as Bluetooth in Windows.
Okay. Right
now it doesn't have that, but that's something that is very likely being worked on.
I don't even know where my Stadia controller is.
You have the white one, I think.
Yeah.
I have the blue exclusive one. It's somewhere in my living room area, somewhere buried somewhere.
I know
it is
one person.
It is a very good controller. It's actually better than the Xbox Elite.
I wouldn't go that far.
The build quality. There's less creaky issues. No Joy-Con, or not, sorry, no drift. The buttons don't. Everything feels more premium than even.
I wouldn't
Elite.
play a shooter on it.
You say that you haven't had enough time with it.
I don't know. When I messed around, like when I judge a controller, I always judge it by.
You were judging it based on latency when you were not wired in.
This is how I judge it. How well will I do in Call of Duty? If I can't react with a split second, I've got a problem.
Wired you can. So it was very well made. I have no idea where my Chromecast Ultra is. Probably in the garbage. I don't know.
Yeah.
I had to put heat sinks on it because it would overheat.
Yeah.
That was a garbage thing, but the controller was great. My brother did end up snagging internally another, like a Seafoam green controller to hold on to, like at, zero cost to him because they're just getting rid of it. Just not to sell or anything, but because he's like, I kind of want a second controller for using with my PC wired.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool. I'm getting a refund of $190 for the console. I never paid for individual games. I paid for the subscription a few times. And then I had games redeemed that were review items. And we were still getting offers for review items up until literally a week. No, a week before. Actually, no. 2 days before, I was getting emails. Here's what's out this week for Stadia. Would you like a review code? And I just haven't responded to any of them because
there
wasn't any point anymore when there weren't any more exclusives.
There was something that I saw. Someone posted on Reddit, and it was, I think it was either in the Google Stadia Reddit or it was on the Cyberpunk Reddit. And he says, fucker, I don't care about a refund. I want my save file.
Okay, yes, you are getting your save files.
Yes. Although certain games, they are having more difficulty, but there is a way to do it, but it's very complicated.
All the major ones are going to be set up to do through Google Takeout, which is a thing where you can back up your data. Certain games that use cloud saves that are through their server, do not be surprised if you are going to get a tool that will let you transfer the Ubisoft titles.
Yes, because those are so easy.
They have joint saves between console generations. And not just that. Remember, Valhalla, you can play on the Xbox, go to your PS5, and pick up where you left off on the Xbox. because it uses a cloud save for all of their stuff. So any game that uses cloud save technology that is multi-console from Ubisoft Net, you'll just be able to import your save. That's not a problem already. Things like Cyberpunk, they might make a tool to transfer it. A specific one. Some of them are going to be transferable directly to Steam. Some are not. But regardless, you get your money back for that. I'm going to get $190. That's going to go straight into Alex's PSVR 2 fund.
Yep. I got to find money for that. So
it's, I mean, I'm not out anything. I had a good time with it. I will tell you right now, in its first year of launch, the most important thing it did was it was the only way to play a stable version of Cyberpunk launch day. Even PCs weren't as stable as the version on Stadia, and they focused on that heavily. They marketed that. It was the only way I could beat the gamer initially.
Yeah.
And it worked. It just fucking worked. And it was the only killer app they ever had.
Yep, that's it. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us here on the Nerd News Network this week. Like I said, a mixed grab bag of material. So what you're going to hear next is going to be one of Alex's review. He took a look at a new router we're going to be taking a look at. And then after that, you're going to hear our old nerd news that we recorded during the dark times of the great Rogers outage of Friday afternoon of last week.
Yeah, that's right, when Rogers went out in my area.
So we will come back after the nerd news and my review of something kind of special. And then we will do the extra of the show and we'll catch you guys real soon. But first, here's Alex with something technological.
It's been a little bit since we last reviewed a networking device, and our friends over at TP-Link, who provided the Wi-Fi 6 mesh deco system. I think it was it last year, the year before. The pandemic was a blur, but we reviewed it on here, and it's been a daily driver in my apartment ever since. Well, they sent over their newest device, which is the TP-Link AXE75. It's a pretty easy numbering scheme for it, but you may see it listed under a couple different things. You may see it as the Archer AXE75 or AXE5400. The 5400 is in reference to its maximum throughput of 5400 megabytes per second, depending on what bands, and you add them all up. But what this is a tri-band gigabit Wi-Fi 6E router. Now, you've probably heard of Wi-Fi 6 by now because a lot of phones have been advertising it. Those were sort of the first to adopt it. Now we're seeing a lot more mini PCs as well as adapters for computers and USB adapters and internal ones popping up with it built in. But the E was new, even to me. I usually keep up on all these new tech. I didn't realize, what's the E for? Well, that's the new standard. And what that does is that adds a 6 gigahertz band. So all Wi-Fi prior to the last 5-10 years, actually about 10 years or so, was running on the 2.4 gigahertz band. And then when we went to wireless AC or what would we consider, I guess that would be Wi-Fi 5 when that became more standardized, we started having the 5 gigahertz band, which provides faster speeds, faster throughputs, but over smaller distances, better for line of sight. So the higher the frequency band that it runs on, the less likely it is to go through troubled terrain and like through concrete and that. If, for an example, even though it's not exactly the same, if you could think of back when we had, people listening mostly to radio, like in cars, FM radio would cut out a lot more than an AM radio would, but AM radio was less high quality, the fidelity, right? So it's sort of like that trade-off you get. So you'll see a lot of things saying dual band or multi-in, multi-out. And so you can have them set up so that it falls over to the other one. Like you'll be on the faster band first, and then if that cuts out, you'll still be connected to the same Wi-Fi ID, but it will fail safe over onto the lower bandwidth but better range options. That's what most people's devices do, and that's usually what it's done for the setup now. And in this case, it's tri-band, so it will detect if your phone has or your device has Wi-Fi 6E. If it does, great. And then if you go beyond a certain distance, it'll cut down to the 5 gigahertz band. And then if you go, say, up the stairs a couple flights and you don't have a mesh system covering the rest of the house with the same speed, it will drop down to the lower speed. And then it'll detect when you get close enough, it might fail back over to the faster speed. So it's actually pretty seamless. And this is one of those devices, when you look at it, it's got 6 antennas on it. It almost looks like there's a wedge on top of it that looks like a portable hard drive. It's not. It's just a design of it. I'm assuming that's headroom for some heatsink. I'm not going to open it up. But setting it up was pretty easy. I actually decided, hey, let's try this over at my mother and grandmother's place, because what they had is about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, we finally switched them from the basic. They had a Wi-Fi router that was just, it was not good. It was like a $30 router, and it was rough trying to get any signal in the house. And we switched them to actually a TP-Link mesh, but it was a Wi-Fi AC, not as high-end as what I have, because at the time they only had, I think, 50 or 60 meg cable internet. And since then they've switched to 300 meg, which is, much more than what they could have handled. So it made more sense to go with the mesh system. Now, we thought, okay, that to get them on like Wi-Fi 6, that'll future-proof them when it comes to like upping their speed. Like they might go with 50 or 500 meg service or gigabit, because the difference in price is like $5 and $15. And my mom, you might be surprised to hear, was a pretty big YouTuber back in YouTube's infancy. Like she was that lady in her 40s that got on back when YouTube was mostly pen pals and like making stupid videos for your friends and your daily blogs back and forth. Like she got an invite from YouTube to go to the first YouTube convention in Toronto, like directly to her. She's got a couple videos with, I think, a few 100,000 views, which is funny because she's basically for the last 10 years abandoned it. But now that she's retired, she's like, I kind of want to get back into that. She's like, but it's kind of slow with my internet uploading. I said, well, that's because your Wi-Fi is slow and you're not, in the old house years ago, we had you wired in through gigabit Ethernet onto our couple hundred meg service. And she's like, well, how can I do this with, I said, okay, let me figure this out for you. So this coincided with getting this item for review, the AXE75. And I went, can I, I tested it as just the plain router as it was out of the box experience. It was really easy to set up. It was able to do it completely through my phone. You follow the steps. It's way easier than when I was, learning to be a networking tech and I had to learn how to set up routers through like command lines in the early 2000s. But and it comes with a Cat 5e cable, so capable of gigabit through wired connection. I would personally probably upgrade that for $10 on Amazon for a Cat 7 cable, which is good enough for 10 gigabit. Not that this would ever use it, but just for the sake of having the shielding involved than just the cheapy cable they give you, but it will get the job done to set you up. And I thought, okay, it works like this. Can I just turn this into an access point to give the house Wi-Fi 6 like through the whole house, just with this access point as a new network, and still keep the mesh network on the old mesh system so that the whole house has Wi-Fi, and just down in the basement where the computers are for her and everything, and where she would use her phone more likely, can we get the fastest speed down there? And luckily it was pretty easy. I was able to switch it once I had it hooked up into access point mode, meaning that I daisy chained it into the TP-Link router. So it goes modem into the mesh router, and then there's a daisy chain out because it has gigabit out on there into the gigabit in on the WAN on the back of this AXE75, and they don't conflict with each other. They're registered as two separate networks. But DHCP is all handled by the mesh system, so it just sees it as another appliance and then it issues IPs through that. They knew each other. They're from the same brand. They could detect what was there. They figured out how to work with each other automatically. They can update firmware on each other, no problem. It grabs it. Resetting them works perfectly fine, and they just set up and work. And it was pretty simple. Like it would automatically know that, you know, my range was too far if I went upstairs and over to the corner of the house, and it went, okay, we're going to drop you down to the 2.4 gigahertz, and it has a 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi 6 band as well. That worked fine. And then when I got out to the backyard where it was just a little too far for it to go, my phone automatically said, okay, there's no internet connection. Let's connect to the next one that we have saved. And it connected to the mesh system in the house, and that was fine. So there's basically whole house coverage with about 75% of the house is able to get the Wi-Fi 6 in its current location and position, which is perfect. You could potentially, if you wanted to, you could run another cable to another part of the house and have another one of these guys hooked up, or a daisy chain, or I could locate it more centrally to the house. But overall, it was pretty solid. I got steady speed. I waited about a week before deciding whether to do the review yet or not, because I wanted to wait until I ordered a device from Amazon that actually had Wi-Fi 6E. And then I was like, I ended up receiving it. And then I received a broken device, sent it back. And luckily, my brother has the newest Pixel. And I said, can you just stop by at Mom's for a few minutes? And he goes, I don't think my phone has 6E on it. And, he works for Google, and he didn't realize that it was a feature that was added via a firmware update that he received, because he has the Pixel 6, even though the 7 is the one that's advertising that it has it. He comes in and it pops up and he goes, oh yeah, it says 6E on his network band once he connected. And he was able to get, we're full saturation of the speed, because obviously, we're dealing with 300 meg internet. So how we ended up testing one final way was, can we use this to share media between us? So I connected to the 6 band. He was on the 6E band, but it's all connected through that router. We went down to the basement, and I grabbed like a 200 megabyte file from my Google Drive that I had already saved on my phone, and I went, okay, can we get some software? And we used a piece of software so that we could connect to each other basically through the router, and we were able to saturate it. The max my phone would do and the max his phone would do, we're getting like 90 megabyte transfer between us, which is pretty amazing considering it's just going wirelessly between us. So we actually did some pretty fun stuff with it. It does future-proof a home. It's reasonably priced. You're looking at about $180, $190 or so in the States. In Canada, let's see what the current rate is, because I know it can go up and down. It's about 300 Canadian. Yeah, that's about right. 200 American, 300 Canadian. You can use this as your entire router setup, especially if you're in an apartment. This would do you. It's good enough that you can do any high-end gaming with it. It's got 512 megs of RAM internally for its operating system, which is about, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's about twice what most routers have, and a quad-core processor built in. So it's pretty darn good and really fast that way. It does have gigabit Ethernet ports in the back, so you can wire yourself in for most things. And then if you have to go wireless, it's got all those plenty of antennas. It'll do you just fine. If you're in a place where you're like 3 stories up and it's in your basement, if you could centrally locate it, it would be better, or use it in a situation like we did where we connected it as an access point into a mesh system. Which works pretty well, but it won't integrate into that mesh as the same network, obviously, because this is a Wi-Fi 6 adapter, and then it's not part of like a Deco Trio or anything like that. But you can have it as a second network. So like when I connect on my phone, it'll say, which network do you want to connect to? In my case, my home would be Richie whatever, because I name it whatever. It'll say Richie 1 or Richie Mesh. That'll be the mesh one, and then you'll see it'll say Richie 6E, and that would be the 6E network. And you can have it on most devices that it'll fail over to the other one in the event that you go at a range or something. Pretty solid setup. They make pretty good routers. It's not like the most flashy gaming RGB crazy thing around, but it's funky and neat looking enough. And what's most important is it stays reliable. I can log in and check, and it's had no downtime, no packet loss, no issues. A pretty solid router. If you're looking to upgrade from a very generic router, you want to get into the brand new 6E band, which is going to have less interference, especially if you're in an apartment and you've got your router over in the corner and you're mostly in the living room doing stuff. The fact that the 6E is going to get you that 6 gigahertz band that basically nothing else is running on, you'll have no interference and you'll basically feel like you're wired in without having any latency at all.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. It is I, Mike the Birdman. He's Alex the producer. All right, folks, it is time to run down the strange, the unusual, the just plain fucked up things that happened on the planet this past week. And surprisingly, this story caught my eye because I can't figure out how this would really work. Cardi B says she lost, quote, multi-million-dollar Call of Duty deal due to court case. Cardi B says she lost a multi-million-dollar Call of Duty deal due to a recent court case. Call of Duty is one of the bigger franchises, not only in gaming, but the entire entertainment industry. The game brings in billions of dollars worth of revenue every year and almost always is the best-selling video game of the year, despite releasing in the final 2 months of the respective year. It's big business and has allowed the franchise to rope in major celebrities, ranging from major athletes to huge movie stars in both marketing campaigns and the actual game. The series has featured actors like Jeff Goldblum, Ed Harris, Kevin Spacey, Kit Harington, Ice Cube, Michael Keaton, so it's clearly lucrative for a lot of people. Cardi B was expecting to be one of the next major celebrities to benefit from Call of Duty, but has apparently lost the opportunity. The rapper took to Twitter to note that she lost a, quote, multi-million-dollar deal with Call of Duty due to stupid decisions, quote, in the past. She noted that she couldn't take the deal because of court and told her fans to think twice before making decisions. Earlier this month, Cardi B pled guilty to assault charges related to a fight at a New York strip club in 2018. She accepted a plea deal to avoid prison time and will serve 15 days of community service and pay court fees to the woman involved. As of right now, it is unclear what that deal would have looked like, but Cardi B did don a flashy necklace of Ghost from Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 in a recent music video. It's unknown if she was expected to Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 or if the deal related to something else altogether. It's possible.
Please tell me that they were going to have some sort of Easter egg in the game where you could do the WAP dance.
Oh God! Now it's weird.
Which that's all I know her from.
That's all I know.
That phenomenon that was the tackiest music video of all time.
Yeah, it was certainly a thing to exist back in 2018.
Tacky's being nice and open. When I remember my mother saying, "What's this disgusting video from this disgusting woman?"
Yeah,
put it lightly.
My wife was like, "Oh my God," and she would torture me with this song on purpose.
I'll tell you what's bad is when I'm taking the bus places and I'm hearing like 5-year-old kids singing it and their parents laughing and thinking it's funny.
Yeah, that's pretty fucked up. And then the final line of this article says, it's possible she would have helped market the game as Call of Duty has used celebrities like Robert Downey Jr., Channing Tatum, and Jonah Hill to advertise the upcoming titles via big live action commercials. I'm looking at the necklace she has of Ghost. It looks kind of cool, actually. Whether there's no way a normal person would ever be able to afford this thing, because that's easily thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of diamonds. I just don't see how she would have fit into the marketing unless maybe it was like a song for an advertisement. Although having the Cardi B skin in Warzone would have been kind of funny. Nothing like Cardi B chopping you down with a light machine gun while doing, I don't know, the Fortnite dance or something.
Instead of press button to teabag, it's press button to walk dance, to twerk dance. Oh, how
I would pay for that.
You know what? You know me and my stance on paying for DLC and extra things. I'd pay $5 if it meant your entire in certain cutscenes, your entire team, gristled men and all, would just like drop their weapons and start twerking in front of you.
Actually,
we've got to stop the menace, the bad guys, and in the scene you're captured, and how you get out of it is you twerk and it plays one of her songs.
I remember when I first beat Call of Duty Black Ops 2, so we're talking like well over a decade ago. I remember at the end of that game is a music video with the in-game characters with Avenged Sevenfold. If the end of Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was Ghost, Captain Price, and Soap, and whoever else dancing the Cardi B,
just
that's
Captain,
worth a 15-hour campaign to me.
Captain Price walks away from you, turns, looks over his shoulder at you, and then just drops down and gives you a whole bunch of twerks, and then walks away like nothing happened.
Yes, I would pay for that.
And you're just like, what? And then you start to think, like, am I hallucinating? Like in like in Black Ops Cold War, did somebody dose me with acid?
My God. So yeah, I guess we'll never know, because I guess she's probably under NDA to disclose what that deal actually was.
Let's be honest. She's not the most intelligent person. She's probably going to slip up and explain everything and then get in more trouble.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. So this next story, it's not necessarily weird, but it's something that kind of caught my eye because I do think it is kind of fun. So according to CBR.com and multiple different outlets, Star Wars Indiana Jones composer John Williams is awarded honorary knighthood. Legendary composer John Williams will be one of the last people knighted by the late Queen Elizabeth II. The Daily Mail announced Williams, along with former Disney CEO Bob Iger, will be the last people appointed honorary knighthood by the late Queen Elizabeth II before her death on September 8th.
So is honorary knighthood because they're not British?
I think so. Yeah, it is. So in total, Queen Elizabeth reportedly granted honorary knighthood to 27 Americans during her reign. The prestigious award is given to foreign nationals who've made incredible contributions to the United Kingdom. Oh. The New York City native joins film director and longtime collaborator Steven Spielberg, who the late Queen knighted in 2001. Since neither Williams nor Spielberg is from the UK, they aren't permitted to identify themselves as Sir. Williams has connections with the UK despite being from the United States. The composer recorded the scores for Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars A New Hope in London. Williams conducted the London Symphony Orchestra for the soundtrack of A New Hope.
That's what I was going to say. It's their involvement with the London Symphony and London Philharmonic, using them to record all their pictures.
Yeah. It says, however, his cinematic contributions go well beyond the two aforementioned films. Williams has composed scores for over 75 films since 1960, spanning his career over 60 years. Some of his most recognizable contributions include music for the Star Wars films, the Indiana Jones series, the first three Harry Potter movies. Spielberg often recruited the 90-year-old composer for his films, including Jaws, Jurassic Park, E.T., and many more. Williams announced Indiana Jones 5 will likely be his last film score, so he can focus more on composing concert music. In addition to his recent honorary knighthood, Williams' list of accolades is rather lengthy. With 52 Academy Award nominations, winning 5, the composer became the second most Academy Award nominated individual, only after Walt Disney. In 2016, the American Film Institute awarded Williams the AFI Lifetime Achievement Award. The Schindler's List composer became the first to be granted the honor outside of the acting and directing fields. Additionally, Williams will receive induction into the Hollywood's Bowl of Fame and a Kennedy Center honor. With a long-time career filled with countless music contributions, Williams' honorary knighthood is arguably well-deserved. Film buffs don't have to look far to find a cinematic score composed by Williams, and his soundtracks will never be forgotten. In recent years, the composer has shifted his focus to the classical music universe, composing for Yo-Yo Ma and Anne Sophie Mutter. Williams collaborated with the Vienna Philharmonic Orchestra to produce the best-selling orchestral album of 2020. This guy, what can you really say about John Williams that hasn't been said already? Music scholars have spoken about him for decades now.
I think a lot of people that are just casual fans get him confused. Like, if you just hear his name, they get his work confused with like Hans Zimmer and Goldsmith. Like, they can't tell them apart until you say, oh, he's the Star Wars guy.
Or Jaws guy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and then they go, oh, like I nobody confuses him with like Danny Elfman. Like, people know that like when they think Danny Elfman, they go, oh, like Tim Burton stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like, whereas those three that I mentioned previously, to a casual person, they might not realize they flow together. They're like, oh, that's the cinematic guy. But if you say that's the Star Wars guy, they're like, oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah,
They think like Imperial March and everything too.
Yeah, like, and that's one of the things with William. He has one of the easiest pop culture associations, like what you just said, Imperial March, Vader, Harry Potter. You automatically think of that very whimsical score from the opening moments of that movie. Jaws. Everybody knows the Jaws theme. I'm honestly, it would not surprise me. Like, there was a test they did years upon years ago, and it's probably not very racially sensitive, but you could go to places far away in like Africa and the Far East, places where pop culture doesn't necessarily penetrate super far,
or the
but
pop
they would
culture is different because their culture is different.
Yeah, exactly. But you could, if you let somebody hear a snippet of the Jaws theme, I guarantee you they would identify like, oh yeah, that's Jaws. Or if they heard the Darth Vader theme, oh yeah, that's Vader.
And if you had to describe his work, he has the most cinematic in that it would adapt to his music. Can also be almost like the sound effects track.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, it becomes a part of it. Whereas some of the other composers make, great music that lifts a film, but his music is sometimes used as the actual effect. Like, think about it. In Jaws, his music is the monster.
Yeah.
Like his music is a character in the film. And the only other composer, like theatrical composer I can think of that does that is Danny Elfman.
Yeah, because everybody knows the Batman theme.
And Danny Elfman, if you had to describe his work, you're like, okay, his work is mischievous.
Yeah.
That's the best term I could use for his. Whereas Williams is more like integral to the story.
Yeah, like my favorite piece of John Williams music, there are two, and they're both from Star Wars. Imperial March. But my favorite, and this will probably surprise some of you, but it comes from Revenge of the Sith, and the theme is called Battle of the Heroes. And back in 2005, there was a enhanced disc that was released alongside that soundtrack. It was a double release, and it had, quote, music videos that were set to John Williams' score. And the Battle of the Heroes one really stuck out in my mind because that's the battle between Obi-Wan and Anakin on Mustafar, as Anakin has fallen to the dark side and really embraced being Darth Vader, and Obi-Wan has to take out his friend. It's one of the most
it's over.
intense.
I have the high ground. I hate you. Chop, chop.
Yeah, but it's one of the most intense pieces of music I think he's really, really done.
Now,
and
correct me if I'm wrong. He did the Qui-Gon fight, right?
Duel of the Fates. Yep.
See, that's
that
probably outside of like the fanfare music, like the main theme, the Imperial March. I think that's probably the most well-known Star Wars track in general.
Yep, I would agree to that because it really penetrated. Because when Phantom Menace marketing was everywhere, and that song was in every trailer.
For anybody that doesn't remember, it's the da da da. If you're thinking that's that song.
Yeah,
that was used in an incredible amount of early YouTube and like you'd see like people splicing that song onto like Newgrounds videos.
Yeah, like it's just one of those songs that will live long past when John Williams passes away. And honestly, if there's a modern composer who will be immortal, and I'm talking levels of classical music that will exist for generations beyond his death, it's Williams, without a doubt. I can say that without any fear.
I didn't realize he was 90.
Yeah, I thought he was like maybe in his early 80s. Nah, wow. Good work. Fantastic career. I hope I see him in concert before he passes away.
Or if he, when eventually that happens, knock on wood, not for a while, but if it happens, the fact that he's composing concert music means that you might just be able to go, like, locally here, we've got the KW Symphony. They might just play his music. right?
Yeah,
So
it's
the kind of
something
thing
that
where,
I
where
would want to see.
you could just make an outing to go see it.
So thank you, honorary Knight John Williams. Since I can't call you sir, I still would anyway. So this next story is definitely not one that I gathered. Thanks, Alex.
Because I like to gather the like truly weird.
Yeah. So this one comes courtesy of yahoo.com. So from their Yahoo news department, is Earth being pummeled by derelict alien spacecraft? Between 1957...
I got this for you because I know you'd like that.
Yeah, this is interesting. So between 1957 and 1968, scientists decided to try their hand at creating new minerals that could act as effective conductors of electricity. They quote, invented a pair, heatite and benzonite. After a few years, the same materials unexpectedly started showing up in fragments of meteorites that had landed on Earth. As it turns out, these weren't minerals that had to be invented, though how they were able to form outside the lab remained a mystery to scientists. Now, 6 decades later, a Venezuelan researcher is trying to connect the dots between the minerals those scientists created in labs and the same minerals that came crashing to the Earth from space. Maybe, just maybe, those superconducting minerals that came from space are also artificial. B.P. Emblad, a physicist at Central University of Venezuela, hypothesized in a study not yet peer-reviewed that appeared online on September 13th. And if that's the case, the minerals could be evidence of extraterrestrial technology techno-signatures, as scientists like to say. It's important to be open-minded and even provocative to consider the following question. Are those meteoric minerals samples of extraterrestrial techno signature? Emblad wrote. It's a controversial proposition. The implications are enormously attractive. Scientists who study alien technosignatures want to find alien tech and get confirmation we aren't alone in the universe, but even they aren't convinced of Emblad's study. There are plenty of reasons to believe those exotic minerals aren't evidence of extraterrestrial civilization. I'm very skeptical that these minerals represent techno signatures, says Edward Sweeterman, an astrobiologist at the University of California, Riverside, told the Daily Beast. It's entirely possible that hittite and brizonite occur naturally somewhere out there in space. And in that case, we wouldn't need ET to explain the mineral's presence in a handful of space rocks. But Embad's broader point, the evidence that aliens could exist right under our noses, has more merit. Scientists largely agree that we should be looking more widely with open minds for signs of extraterrestrial civilizations. Emblad didn't respond to requests for comment, and then the article just kind of goes on. I'm going to say the evidence and idea of being visited by extraterrestrial probes and satellites, that's probably a little more plausible than, something zipping around here on Earth right now.
Like if you could influence a meteor and stuff, but you'd be like, okay, let's create something that we believe only can be created synthetically or by art. Like when they say artificial, it's not artificial. It's just taking other elements and configuring them into such a way that you make a new element. Well, if you think that it's not possible to have that created naturally, like just as a natural occurrence, but without an outside force's influence, okay, well let's do that. Send it out into space, and if somebody else finds it, if they're of a sufficient intelligence and similar enough to us, they might go, hey, this can only be made by us, meaning somebody else like us is out there.
Yeah, and let's just hypothesize. Let's say certain travel through space is possible, and me and Alex just finished recording a Star Trek thing, which will be out probably by the time this podcast comes out. We were talking like in Star Trek, there's the theory of warp and how like warp field theory works. But according to real life physics, faster than light travel isn't possible. Or if it is, it's well beyond our technologies. But when you look at the stuff we've accomplished with the Voyager 1 and 2 probes and how far they've traveled through space using sublight, you know what? If this is a probe or something that had come out from outer space, all right, why not? It may take thousands of years. I know there's even one theory in astrobiology and techno theories that says we may be visited by alien technologies all the time, but they may be microscopic robots because a biological being probably can't travel those distances.
And I'll tell you, if we start getting more of those meteors coming, I'm going to say this right now: the only good bug is a dead bug. And I'm from Buenos Aires, and I say kill them all.
Well,
because I'm sorry, no, if these meteors start getting a little bigger and a little closer, and then I'm going to say, all right, we're going to take out every last one of them. Everybody, we can't let what happened at Clendathu happen again.
I mean, it's always interesting to hear whatever happens in the field of ufology every couple of years. And with the government having, especially the US government, having a little more pressure on them of late, saying, you acknowledge these are real unidentified flying objects. This is stuff from your own gun camera footage that you can't explain. Lucy, you got some explaining to do. So I don't know. I mean, ultimately, as the X-Files once professed, the truth is out there. I can't remember what movie it's from, but I think the quote goes something along the lines of, imagine what we'll know tomorrow. So who's to say? So our next story, I got to finish up Alex's double whammy of what the fuck did you find on the internet? And this one comes courtesy of True Crime Daily. Cannibal pleads guilty to killing victim named Kevin Bacon, hanging him upside down and eating body parts. You.
See, your stories haven't been weird enough lately. I'm back. I've got to get you, back on board. So I'm going into the extremely weird to balance it out.
Yeah, this is wow. A 50-year-old.
I just laughed when I saw that he ate Kevin Bacon.
A 50-year-old cannibal pled guilty to killing 25-year-old missing man and eating parts of his body. The 35 Circuit Court records show that Mark Latunsky entered the plea Thursday, September 22nd for charges of open murder and disinterment and mutilation of a dead body. Latunsky's attorney told the Lansing State Journal, this is where Aaron is from, in a statement, it was a, quote, difficult decision to plead guilty. The statement added, quote, the law requires that attorneys must follow the objectives of clients found to be legally competent as it relates to decisions such as pleading guilty, even if the attorneys believe that it is not in the best interest of the client. We will continue to vigorously advocate for Mr. Latunsky's degree of hearing and sentencing, end quote. MWireLive.com reports Latunsky's attorneys likely wanted to use the insanity defense in court. According to WJBK TV, Latunsky's trial was scheduled to begin October 18th. The victim, Kevin Bacon, was reported missing Christmas Day 2019 after he did not show up for breakfast at his parents' home. MWireLive.com reports several of his close friends and family searched around his hometown of Schwartz Creek for him. WJBK reports Bacon's roommate told investigators he had met with a man on the dating app Grindr. According to MWire.com, police went to Latunsky's home in Shiawassee County and discovered the 25-year-old dead on December 28, 2019. He was reportedly hanging upside down from the ceiling and had been cut all over his body. MWireLive.com reports Bacon had been stabbed in the back, his throat slashed, and some of his body parts were eaten. Latunsky underwent several competency hearings while he was in custody and spent time in a mental health facility. In 2020, WJBK reports Latunsky's attorney requested competency hearing, saying in court, quote, he believes named someone else. He believes he's from a royal family out of Wales, the Thomas clan, and just the nature of the crime itself. You've got to send him for this evaluation. MWire.com reports that he was declared fit to stand trial in October 2020, but in March 2022, Latunsky's attorney sought another evaluation because of his mental state at the time. In May 2022, a judge deemed him competent. Wow.
Horrifying, terrible, sad, morosely funny. Not what happened to poor Kevin Bacon. The funny part is the name and just the funniness of just how
like, you know what, it's strange because you do see cannibal crimes come up every so often,
but do you notice something?
Not in North America.
But it's not just that. You notice there isn't a crime to be charged with for that? It's considered so heinous that there isn't a crime of cannibalism, at least not in the modern criminal code.
Yeah.
It's literally disembowelment and desecration of a body. But there isn't a thing specifically for that because it's so rare, because it's so abhorrent to our core that we don't even have a crime for it. Because for a crime for it to exist, it means it has to have happened so many times that there needs to be a specific crime associated with it.
Yeah, like the only thing I can think of even remotely close to this is I seem to recall a case in Germany in the later part of the 2000s that involved cannibalism.
Yeah, that was all over Reddit, but that may or may not have been 100% real.
Yeah, like that's the only time I can think of in modern memory that I can think about it.
Because other than that, you have like what was the one? The Cannibal the Musical was based on the Alfred Packer story, which that's like Frontier Times, right? And then there's that one. Where was it? Europe. I think that was. There's a TV show based on it that just came out. But a plane that crashed and the people had to eat each other to survive.
Oh, I remember the movie that happened in the 90s about the Brazilian soccer team, Alive.
Yeah,
there was that.
Well, no, but like very recently there was a movie or TV show that like just came out, and I think it has Cillian Murphy in it, or somebody else. But yeah, like it's so rare that whenever a single incident of it happens, it basically gets turned into a movie because you're like, wow.
I'm honestly surprised this didn't become bigger news, in all honesty.
Well, especially like, and obviously what caught my eye was, the name. The flash. It's like he eats Kevin Bacon. I'm like, what? Excuse me now?
Just yikes. So obviously,
and you know how my brain works. I was like, well, did he like make bacon out of Kevin Bacon?
I will be very curious to see how this trial proceeds when he does go to trial.
I'm not trying to make light of just how terrible this was, but like, holy like this is truly one of the what the fuck moments when you see an article like that pop up in like the regular news.
Yeah, it's something like, wow. So obviously our condolences go out to Mr. Bacon's family, and hopefully this monster will stay behind bars for quite some time. I don't know.
And also the fact that multiple competency hearings and he was still determined to be competent. He's like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, like, you're not getting out of this, guy. It's just not going to happen.
Like at this point, it makes you almost beg the question, like, how certain states, most states don't have the death penalty, but it's like, maybe in cases of cannibalism, we don't need that person here no more.
Yeah, it's an ugly situation. So if there happens to be follow-up, we will keep an eye on this story, and we will update you accordingly.
We'll find out if Kevin Bacon has seen the story about Kevin Bacon.
I can only imagine his press agent told him about this. Yeah.
How much? When they make a Lifetime TV movie, it'll be starring Kevin Bacon.
And then I guess the only other quote unquote weird story to talk about this week, and this is just me just kind of throwing it out there into the ether, is earlier this week, rapper Coolio has passed away. I think he was 58 years old.
So not weird so much, other than the fact that he was pretty young.
Yeah, and the story was he was visiting a friend's house. He went into the bathroom and he just didn't come out after a while. And I think the what people are theorizing is he just had a heart attack. And unfortunately, that's how my aunt died back in the mid-90s. She went to the bathroom and she had a heart attack.
Well, Elvis, right?
Yeah, like Elvis, yeah.
And the joke with, he died on the can. It can be from... people are like, it's constipation, pushing too hard. A lot of times it's people go to the bathroom because they're not feeling well.
Yeah, exactly.
And if it's something like a heart attack, a lot of people don't know this unless they've had a heart attack or had a family member who's had one. A lot of times you feel ill and you throw up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's your body's that's literally your body's reaction when you're having an angina attack, which is where you're in the middle of a heart attack. A lot of people throw up and they feel ill, so they go to the bathroom, and that's where they collapse.
Yeah, it's just unfortunate. And I knew Coolio from the Gangster's Paradise video. I mean, who didn't? His hairstyle was parodied a bunch of times in the 90s.
Weird Al especially.
Weird Al, yeah. And they eventually kind of made up. Coolio wasn't cool with it for a while. But Weird Al posted a photograph on his Facebook this week where it showed them two hugging it out at an event.
Well, and remember the time he was still trying to cultivate an image of a tough guy, even though he was a tough guy because he had, look, I got this crazy hair. It looks goofy, but don't mess with me. I'm a tough guy. That was the persona. And he thought Weird Al was making a complete mockery of him. And he wasn't. He was doing what he does to everybody, paying homage to people.
Yeah.
And I think where he might have got pissed off more was that Weird Al used it as his album cover for Bad Hair Day, right? So,
yeah, I mean,
but remember, like not just this, he also didn't he appear in like the scary movies, like the comedies?
I think he did something, and I saw this, but I'm not going to commit 100% to saying this is accurate. I think he was doing something for Futurama at some point, like he was working on something. So
I'll pull him up right now because that is like ridiculously young still. Like, you know what I mean?
And folks, I know some of you who are listening are a little bit older. Like I turned 41 this month. I turned 41 on the 20th. And your health is something you really start to need to consider. I mean, me and Alex, we aren't in the greatest of health. I'm in better health than I ever have been. My heart is fortunately very strong. I have very good cholesterol, and the doctors say for a guy your size, you're in really, really good health, but that doesn't mean you should take it for granted. So
no. And the thing is, you're in good health, and it's the same thing as me, in good health for what they think you should be. You know, you'd think you'd be in worse health because of other issues you have, but you don't. You know, you and I are by no means like the sparkling banner of health.
No,
but we are surprisingly resilient is probably the better way to put it.
Yeah.
Did you know that Coolio was in Batman and Robin?
Was he one of the goons?
No.
Who was he?
He was being set up to be Scarecrow.
That would have been awesome.
He played Jonathan Crane. But he was credited as Banker, but it was in the script he was Jonathan Crane, who is the alter ego of Scarecrow. So he was being set up to be Scarecrow in 1997.
Wow, that would have been an interesting movie to see.
Oh, now I remember Leprechaun in the Hood. He played himself. I remember that. Let me see. Is there anything else here? He's in Daredevil in the director's cut.
Oh yeah, he's the guy accused of the crime.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Dracula 3000. I remember there was a bit of a buzz around that when I was in high school. Futurama Bender's Big Score. He was Kwanzaa Bot for Christmas. He was the Kwanzaa Bot, or for Kwanzaa.
That's it. So that's probably what I'm thinking. I mean,
and then television wise, he appeared as himself in like children's shows like All That and Kenan and Kel. The Nanny. He played himself. Oh no, he played somebody else. He played somebody named Irwin for 2 episodes. Yeah, he was Kwanzaa Bot in 2 episodes. He was in Static Shock. And see, I thought he was in one of the Scary Movies, but who was in Scary Movie with him? Or I thought he was, or was he in one of those, like another one of those parody movies?
High School High, maybe?
I know that they parodied his look in that. But I guess he wasn't in Scary Movie. Who the hell was in Scary Movie then?
I don't know. I've seen them all, but I don't remember a lick of any of them.
There was some rapper in it with once Leslie Nielsen started appearing, I think. But yeah, that's it's kind of sad that that's really young. So there's always speculation when it's a younger guy and they're like, oh, it's got to be drugs, it's got to be that. No, he's at that age where if you're going to have a heart attack, it's right around mid to late 50s.
Yeah. So
I don't think that they said that there was a coroner that was involved, but they haven't like released anything yet as of this particular recording, right?
Yeah.
We'll know maybe a little later on. Oh, see, this is going to be kind of dumb, but I thought that he was in the film. It's not. It's Snoop Dogg's in one of them, and Shaquille O'Neal's in another one.
Yeah,
for some reason I had it in my head there. Oh no, I know what it was. I was getting a whole bunch. This is that era when rappers were showing up in every film. You know, like it was just like to have cameos. Wasn't Busta Rhymes in Halloween Resurrection or something?
Yeah, where he's like trick or treat, motherfucker. Yeah,
that's where I thought it was Coolio, but it was Busta. So,
and only Busta Rhymes could have delivered that line.
And he's also yeah, Busta. Ludacris could have been in it too. I would have accepted Ludacris, but then again, Ludacris is much better being sort of a smart goofball-y guy in all of the
Triple X
Fast
movies.
Fast
and Furious. That's
yeah.
it.
I think he's probably the only memorable part of Halloween Resurrection. But anyway, back to paying respects to Coolio. You know, pour one out, play a song.
Yeah, just honor his life and memory in your own way. And for us 90s kids, maybe play Gangster's Paradise, maybe watch the video on YouTube today. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for this edition of the Weird News this week. What's coming up on this part of the show? Well, this is probably going to be my review of something that I took a look at this week. Another musician who has passed away. This is going to be my review of Elvis, the Baz Luhrmann film that came out earlier this year from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. We will be back, guys, right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net. Hey guys, Mike the Birdman here, and I'm here to talk to you about one of the latest releases from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. I'm talking about the musical biopic Elvis, done by Baz Luhrmann, that came out earlier this summer with Austin Butler playing Elvis and Tom Hanks playing Colonel Tom Parker. And this is a movie that was, well, I think a lot of people liked it. I know I certainly did. Alex didn't much care for it, but he doesn't like musicals, so take with that what you will. The movie itself, it's a interpretation of Elvis's life. Some stuff is true, some stuff is a little bit embellished, some time is changed here and there, but for the most part, it stays true to the spirit of Elvis, which is a person in musical history that I don't really know a whole lot about. I mean, I've heard, you know, the big classics like A Little Less Conversation, Blue Suede Shoes, Hound Dog, you know, all the big hits and whatnot. But I really didn't know a lot about his story, and I've heard about Colonel Tom Parker, and I didn't know how much of really a villain he was in Elvis's life. I just knew he was kind of a scumbag. So here you follow Elvis from his very early days, finding out about gospel music, and right up until his death in the late 70s. And you get an incredible performance by Austin Butler. Like, if his name is not brought up around Oscar time, I will be remarkably surprised. And then you get a, how do I put this delicately without offending Forrest Gump himself, a over-the-top and very strange performance by Tom Hanks, which at some points it's really, really, really interesting. And other points, it's like an SNL sketch where he's doing this really weirdly over-the-top accent to be the Dutch impersonation of Colonel Tom Parker. It's very strange, and the makeup for him is also a little bit out there too, but I'm the same guy who watches Star Trek, so weird prosthetics are not anything unusual to me. Overall, though, I think the movie is genuinely entertaining. This is a movie that you really want to experience with a good sound system, because it really fills the room with certain musical interludes, to which there are many in this. I was actually remarkably impressed by this movie. I had such a good time watching this. Now, to speak about these special features on here, there are about 40 minutes-ish, and they're spread across several different ones. There is one that talks about music, the style, which I didn't realize how much of this went into Elvis's hair, which is kind of funny. They also talk a little bit about Graceland. They do the typical behind-the-scenes stuff. They also isolate the musical moments into their own special features, where you can just kind of play the little bits where you see Austin performing, or they might be like a montage. Like the one that I remember watching was the one where it's A Little Less Conversation, where it talks about him going into the 1960s, making movies faster and cheaper, but then the world changed. And then there's the Unchained Melody one, which is fantastic. there's just a lot of really good things to like about this movie. Now, like I said, is this going to be the most factual historical telling of Elvis's life? No. Is it going to be an entertaining version of Elvis's life as seen through this visionary director? Yes. So can I recommend it? Yes. My family loved it. I saw this with my mother-in-law, saw this with my wife, and we had a really, really, really good time. So I'm really glad that the 4K presentation by Warner Brothers Home Entertainment is something fantastic. Plus, you do get the standard Blu-ray and the digital copy. So I highly recommend Elvis, coming to us from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment. Welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. Big thanks to Warner Brothers for sending that over to me. So, yeah, guys, hopefully you are enjoying your holiday Monday, depending on how you choose to view this day. I'm not going to tell you how to do it.
And for Americans, this is real Thanksgiving. Fight me over it. I dare you.
So, yeah, guys, I guess in terms of programming, we are trying to get some stuff scheduled this month. You just heard our annual Halloween special with James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, where we talked about some Stephen King movies. We are going to be talking about some movies of John Carpenter and Mick Garris. Just right now, it's getting me, Alex, and Aaron in the same virtual room at the same time.
With the right schedules, it's kind of crazy right now.
Well, yeah, it's like Aaron is doing all this really cool World War II stuff. You're at your mom's, and then I'm always at the hockey game.
I'm doing family stuff and getting things sorted in the family life that need to be done. So I'm usually free most other times, but you're doing a lot more out of the house, which is weird. Which is complicating schedule somewhat slightly.
Yeah, but yeah, we are still going to be doing some more Halloween programming. I do have a hard time scheduled in with Aaron to do our show on cryptids, so that we'll be talking about Bigfoot, aliens, skinwalkers, all sorts of weird shit. You can look forward to that hopefully later on this week. I did a show with Ken where we talked about anime romances, which...
That's coming this week.
Yep, that show caught me by surprise, is what I'll say.
You boys are sucky baby poos.
Okay, I will share this moment because it wasn't recorded in the show, because it had to happen afterwards. So after me and Ken recorded that podcast on anime romances, I literally had to go to the park to decompress because it was an emotional fucking roller coaster.
And I'm like stone cold. Then again, occasionally when something hits me, I bawl like a little girl.
Yeah,
it's like, Alex, what do you mean? That's sexist. Don't say little girl. I'm like, no, I bawl like a 4-year-old girl. Like I sound like it. My voice raises like 6 octaves, and I'm just like, and then I'll send messages. Michael, Blair, Alex, baby crying, very sad movie.
Yeah, Ken showed me 2 movies, and you'll be able to hear about them later on this week. We talked about Anthem of the Heart, which does not have a dub, and we talked about another movie called Your Name, which does have a dub.
That must have been hard for you without a dub.
It wasn't so bad, but parts of the file I watched didn't have the subtitles properly, so I had to fill in some blanks in my head.
Because the problem is subtitles on a big TV, even from far away, unless you can double or triple the size, sometimes it's hard to follow.
Yeah, although what I saw were 2 beautiful movies. So much so, I'm actually seeking out to import them because they were that good.
I think Your Name is available here on 4K.
Yeah, and I really want to get it. So
when I hear Your Name, though, all I think of is that little Nas X song. It's not that, people.
No, it is not that.
It's not little Nas X fucking the devil and then killing the devil to take over his place.
Yeah, no, it is definitely not that. So
or is it? You have to watch and find out.
Who knows? So other than that, like I said, we are going to do something about Mick Garris because Alex had seen a movie called, what was it called again? Something Highway?
Quicksilver Highway, where it was 2 parts. One was a Mick Garris story, and one was a Stephen King story, I think.
Yeah, and then I'm going to be talking about the Stand miniseries, and then Aaron, I'm sure, will pick something. And then we are going to talk about some John Carpenter movies, because I have never seen Assault on Precinct 13. I have only seen Ghost of Mars once. I've never seen Christine.
I mean, good for you. You don't need to see Ghost of Mars twice.
I liked it when I saw it, but that was also a million years ago.
It's like Vampires. Vampires doesn't hold up.
Oh, that makes me sad, but James Woods sucks. So yeah, we got that coming up, and what we're going to do for a big Halloween...
I'm James Woods. I'm an asshole. That's sort of how he starts out everything he says now. And after that, everything that comes out of his mouth is just mean garbage.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't disagree with you there. As for something big for Halloween, I am working on something right now. One of my original projects, I was going to do some local stuff here in Guelph. I may have found something else. I'm just waiting to hear back from a location. And if this works out the way that I want it to, I might be able to do some paranormal investigation.
And if not this year, maybe it's something that you can get scheduled for next year.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I mean, regardless, I'm trying.
Sometimes, you know, it might be like, hey, we're too busy this month, and maybe you can record it after, and we could bank it if we had to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I'm going to try and bring you guys some spooky content this month as best as we possibly can. Maybe we'll do some more easy loose cannons with Alex, JT, Ken, and Aaron, or whoever, because there's no shortage of horror movies. The new Hellraiser just came out. Halloween Ends comes out in theaters this week. Smile I just saw, and it's okay. There's a lot of good stuff to talk about that's easy. Hocus Pocus 2 just came out on Disney+. It's, again, higher tier streaming movie. It's okay. So yeah, we will have something to talk about, I'm sure. So until next time here on This Week in Geek, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I have been Mike, the Birdman, saying, until next time, folks, be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
Lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.